that. Okay, I'll call the Rockport Select Board meeting for Monday, December 11th to order. First item on the agenda are two public hearings for liquor license applications. The first one, let's see, I think there's things I have to talk about. The first one is for Rockport Harbor Hotel, LLC. And that is an application for a new liquor license for the hotel at 20 Central Street, Rockport, Maine. Do we have anyone from the hotel here? There's 3 of us. Wonderful. Who would you like to have come up and just present the? And if you'd state your name and address.
I'm the general manager for Rockport Harbor Hotel.
Okay, great. And you've applied for a liquor license?
Yes, we have, yeah.
And is there anything more you want to say about the?
I don't think we have anything to add per se. I think we're just, anxious to get moving forward and get our doors open. So,
Wonderful.
and this is the next step in the process.
Great. Does anybody on the board have any questions for Sarah?
I read through and everything looked pretty logical to me.
Pretty straightforward, yeah.
Good. And when are you opening?
December 27th.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yay.
right around the corner.
That's great. Okay, well, with that, with no questions
public?
from the board, any public? Anybody in the public who wants to? All right, then we'll close the hearing.
Okay. Wow, that was easy.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
The way our agenda is going to work, we'll act on the license right after we do the next application.
Okay.
And then we'll give you a vote right away.
Wonderful.
And you can be on your way.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is a liquor license for Bear's Den Billiards.
Didn't know I get to talk.
And it's an application for a liquor license for Bear's Den Billiards, which will be located at the former State of Maine Cheese Building on Route 1, which I think more recently has been the escape room.
Right.
Is that correct?
Currently, it's trapped.
Trapped, right. Okay, anything you'd like to say about the application?
Nope. Just changing the ownership. It's it's still going to be trapped escape rooms. We're changing the
Okay.
name a little bit, but it's the same building, serving the same kind of stuff.
Same idea, but now having a liquor license.
It's just
changing.
alcohol and wine, but yeah, changing the name, keeping escape rooms, and then adding more pool tables to it. So
Okay.
So there's a current license under,
Previous owner, prior owner.
right under Trapped LLC, I think, has the current license. So January 4th, tentatively, or potentially moves up to January 2nd, it'll switch to me and Tracy to Bear's Den Billiards.
Okay.
So,
Any questions from the board?
Well, I was going through it and I couldn't figure out some of the information that was on
Okay,
the,
ask
on
away.
the application. First, I wasn't sure the ownership, if it was like half of the building or what. So is it basically that you guys are taking over the entire building and
Correct.
purchasing it?
We're buying all the real estate, all 3 buildings, and Trapped.
Okay. And I haven't been in there for a while, but is it, on the diagram you guys submitted, it looked like there were 3 tables and 2 pool tables and,
There are currently 2 pool tables,
okay.
ping pong table, air hockey, arcade, whatever. All that stuff is pretty much staying. And then we're adding more pool tables.
And is the whole perimeter, I mean, the whole inside of that area licensed for alcohol service?
The whole first floor is.
Okay.
And that's the same plan that we plan on doing, is that same thing with the first floor that's currently done, is the same thing. We don't take, no drinks go upstairs. We don't take anything into the escape rooms themselves, so that no one messes with any of the puzzles that are in there. For example, we have a glass break inside the escape room like that. So no drinks go upstairs. It's just on the first floor.
Is there a kitchen? I mean, Because
There's
it doesn't show
not
anything.
currently a kitchen, but there will be a kitchen early in January. That's,
Okay. So is it, and I don't mean to grill you, but these are just questions I
Yeah,
had, because,
yeah.
the diagram was pretty sparse.
Yeah, I
Um,
copied what she had done, because we're keeping that part the same. And so, yeah, so that's why I figured it's what she was doing, that's what we're gonna be doing from an alcohol perspective. None of that changes. It's still beer and wine served out of bottles and cans coming out of a cooler. It's not a full bar. It's not like you can come get a mixed drink. So,
But it's a restaurant license you're applying for?
nope, this is just for the liquor license. There's a separate application
Well,
being done
But
for,
there's different categories of liquor licenses,
Yeah, it's a restaurant.
and,
Yeah, you
and,
don't have to have a restaurant.
and it showed that you were gonna get a restaurant beer and wine license. And if there's not a kitchen yet, I don't know the technicalities of how these things have to proceed.
so I know I have to have a health inspection. I'm meeting with the health inspector next week, and then she's got to come back after we own it. She comes to do her actual health inspection to sign off on the kitchen, and all the other stuff that they sign off on, number of bathrooms and all that kind of stuff that she has to sign off on, hand washing stations and everything.
Okay.
So then there's a fee for that. That's already been submitted to the state, and I just talked to her this morning, actually, and she's hoping to come next week before any placements of a hand washing sink is done, for example.
The details, but the kitchen's underway and all that then, okay.
Right,
And then the state liquor has to do an inspection as well.
Yeah.
So we just give the okay that the town is okay with it, but the
Right.
state ultimately has to do the inspection and make sure that they've got the proper food inventory, proper
Okay.
licensing and placement and
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
right.
And the last question I had, I guess, was on the application, had you and Tracy and another,
Austin?
Austin, who currently manages the escape room, she's staying on as an employee,
Okay.
so.
Would he be, because it shows on here he's 20 years old,
Right,
according to his birth date. Is that viable on, well, the liquor license, people would need to determine
is.
that, right?
right, and I believe he's currently listed as well, right
Okay,
now. So
okay.
I think you can serve it at 18. Obviously can't consume it, but
As long as you've got
17.
somebody older,
17,
is it 17?
yep,
but you need somebody older on premises, right?
correct.
Yeah.
You have to have someone 21 or older that's in a managerial position.
Yep,
Okay.
so meet me and Tracy.
Okay,
We have an expert.
okay,
One of us will be there pretty much every day of the week,
okay.
if not both of us for a while,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, and the final thing was, you have it listed, expected start date January 4th, 2023.
2024, did I put 23?
23 is on the form.
No, it's not supposed to be 23, it's supposed to be 24.
Okay.
Anybody else, questions?
He hit them all.
Okay.
Those were mine, so.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sure,
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, and any questions from the public? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so first would be act on the liquor license for the Rockport Harbor Hotel. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Did I make a
Second from
motion?
Jenny. Any discussion? All those in favor? Great. All right, thank you. Next is, yeah. Approving the liquor license for Bear Den.
I move the board approve the liquor license for Bears Den Billiards, AKA Zabots LLC.
Second.
All those in favor? Great.
Quick question on how soon after your approval will Liz at the town office have the paperwork that I can send into the state?
We will sign it tonight.
Okay. So tomorrow maybe I can grab it from her, or maybe the next day?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table.
You're good.
We did it.
You're
Did
good.
it.
Did we approve it and everything?
Yes, we're
Okay, thank
approved.
you,
Yep.
sorry.
We did that.
It'd be like Groundhog Day. Okay, great. Well, thank you, good luck.
Matthew just interrupted the,
It doesn't take much, that's a little scary, isn't it?
I would expect it from me.
All right, mostly because I couldn't find the motion for that one. Not separated, but anyway, let's just keep moving along. All right, town manager's report.
A bit of a more brief report this month. A lot of things internal that really don't impact the public, but obviously, things are always moving on. Obviously, we have a number of dates with the holidays coming up that will be closed. The annual safety training on January 9th. I just want to thank Chief Peasley, who's been working really hard to try to simplify and condense what we're trying to do. Trying to make it a little bit more on the responsibility of our department heads to carry that weight of that day with their employees, but then come together, do some collective CPR and AED training, Narcan, the things that impact us all universally. But of course, there's a big difference between employees who are, say, working at the town office as opposed to Public Works, as opposed to Harbor. So trying to differentiate so that way there's value in it for everyone out of that day. So anyway, thanks, Jason, for your time on that. This is dog license time of year. And Jeff, I noticed the monitors all went black, so I'm hoping you know that. Okay, good. All right, good. We are in dog license time, so this is the time to come in. I know it's such a crazy amount of time that gets spent in every town office to collect $6 or $11 a dog, depending upon their circumstance, but it's a whole lot better to do that than to have to talk with folks after February 1st and say, yeah, actually it's $31 for your little doggy. So please come in, please take care of that. You got 6 weeks, no penalties. It's easy. I've registered my dog today and everyone's happy. So please take advantage of that. I also wanted to note, get it on people's radar that the primaries, presidential primaries, there's a lot that's going to happen certainly after the first of the year with New Hampshire and Nevada, Well, Maine's going to have their own primary. And we will be hosting that primary for the town of Rockport for the Republicans and Democrats participating in this space. So the election is going to be moving to this space here in the library. So from 8 to 8, people will come in here and they'll cast their ballots and then they'll go. So that's on March 5th, Tuesday, March 5th, which will be a big change. So obviously we'll do our best to let people know that this is coming. I would imagine we'll probably have a Rockport resource coming out before that point in time. Obviously, we don't really get involved with national politics and say this is what your ballot will look like and all that. Trust me, there'll be more than enough of that nonsense on the airwaves. But at the very least, for people to know, if they want to vote, this is the place they do it. So as people are out there and about, please let them know.
Is there a banner that could be put up in front of the library?
That's a good idea.
I know.
We haven't really used that space. We haven't really used that space, to that end. But there's a lot of people who swing by, as you know. Yeah, we'll talk about that, but it's not hard to do, and yeah, we could probably get that done. Good idea. Let's see. Donut Festival work is rolling ahead, so we're trying to get our 2024 cover or logo in place. So the submissions for that are due on December 18th, so a week from today. So, excuse me, they have to be received by the 10th, which is yesterday, but we're going to be deciding by the 18th. So hopefully after the first of the year, we'll know what that happens. So stay tuned. I don't know. Carrie's the one collecting them, so I'm not sure yet. We do have a new logo for sort of our operations that I think is going to be a big hit. And it has a lot to do with Andre, a little bit to do with the donuts, and to me, that's a win-win right there. So I don't think you can go wrong on that one. So stay tuned for that one. Wrapped up our public works projects. Weather just was not our friend this year on any note. So, we were able to get our paving done. And, I think there's some areas that they'll need to come back to because time just wasn't on our side this year. But I think, it's nice to button those up. We're a bit shorthanded in public works right now, so thankfully we were able to get some of those projects completed. And we do have some help in terms of being able to get our plowing done. We've got some folks who are pitching in so we're able to keep on the same routes and keep things moving, but we are shorthanded. So as you can see in the report, we have ads out there, and in fact interviewed someone today. So we're trying to get those spots filled. Number of different events going on, but probably the most notable event is New Year's Eve. 4:30 down at Marine Park is when festivities will start. Food trucks, we got fire pits, we got luminaries, all the good stuff that has made that event just absolutely dynamite. And then, like last year, pairing it with an event at the Opera House. This year, Creatures of Habit, who are a really, really good band who can put on a good show. And I think it's going to be a really nice combination. We also moved the time for the fireworks back a little bit, so there wasn't this sort of exodus from town and then everyone coming back in. So hopefully people stick around, and it's sort of one leads to the other a little bit. But that's December 31st. Obviously, weather is always weather. We thought we were going to be blown off the map this morning, and I went down to visit Abby, and it was like, much ado about nothing, but a lot of rain, a lot of flooding. I think we did certainly have a lot of rainfall all across town, but not anything to write home about or be concerned with in terms of damage. We had, the usual spots, the West Street extensions, the folks on Robinson Drive are watching that culvert and making sure, they could still get out before they left for the day. But everything, we sort of made it through. So knock on wood, and let's hope the 31st is similarly placid and nothing's going on, and we can have a great fireworks show. So
What time are the fireworks again?
6, yep. And I think that's about it. Yeah. So anyway, there are a lot of little things going on, but not as much that's report worthy.
So is the pedestrian bridge now closed?
Oh, yes, thank you. That's a big one. Yeah, so yes, it's now closed. For anyone who'd been over the bridge over the summer, there was a lot of bounce and give to it. And through the fall, our crews have been looking at it, buildings and grounds, and I think you'd love to say, well, it's made it this long, but better to be safe than sorry. And I think, it certainly will impact those who walk through the harbor and walk through Marine Park. And there's a lot of people who do that. That's just part of their loop. But unfortunately, it's just not safe. It's just not safe. So Abby is already starting to make plans to have the bridge pulled up. And we're looking at our options for what can go in its place. There's been some talks. We have some funding available that's left from the infrastructure bond that we could tap into, but we need more details right now in terms of what options are available. But talking with a number of different vendors who could do something and also have, most importantly, I think, have it done before the summer. That's really the thing in my mind is. We really need to have that done, not just for, with the Donut Festival, but have it done before Memorial Day weekend. I think that's the
Maybe not
goal.
run the marathon or the run. Possibly.
Maybe, yeah,
A lot of people when you think about it.
the pitter patter of the feet, is not great. Yeah, so we haven't really talked about it, but I might as well mention it now. And this is actually more related to the Donut Festival, is that there's some planning going into bringing a crate race much like the Lobster Festival has their crate race, and to do something like that. And Abby's idea, Abby came up with this. I'll give her all the credit because she's in the room. No, she deserves it though. You have like a triple crown, right? Because you have like Rockland, you have ours, you have Camden's. And so like you could really, make it something. So I would not do it. I will not do it. But for the hardy souls who will, then, good on them. But but we're not going to use the old bridge for that either. So don't worry about that. But yeah, so that's about it. I also probably should mention the in lieu of taxes, Coastal Opportunities, $400, and the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship, $6,500. Those amounts, again, those are payment in lieu of taxes, and we haven't talked about those in the past, but those are amounts that nonprofits are funding, are giving to the town in recognition for the amount of services they're using. They don't have to do this. There's no obligation on their part. It's merely those entities are trying to be a good citizen, a good neighbor, and recognizing that just like all of us who are homeowners who call for services, there's an impact to the taxpayer, and they're trying to offset that in some way. So many thanks to both of those groups and the others who participate in voluntarily funding some of our operations. That's
I
it.
think we used to have to, the select board used to have to approve those donations. There was some aspect on our agenda, and I'm assuming because of the changes we've made to the charter, that we don't have to take any action on that. It never made a lot of sense.
That's a good question. You're right, yeah.
We did do it in the past.
Yeah. I'll check into that, see if why, I
Yeah,
don't,
there's
'cause-
some step, but if it's in the
Yeah.
charter, the way we had added things into the charter, then maybe.
yeah. But I think they'll still require a vote. I'll check into that, see why that hasn't made it in.
All good news. We like to vote on good things.
Right, yeah, it's like, yeah, how great is it? Is it a 10 or is it 100? I don't know, it's all good, but, yeah.
Thank you to both those entities for that. Okay. Next is public input on non-agenda items. Next, any amendments to the,
She has one.
oh, do you have
Oh,
one,
okay.
Kristen? Okay,
I wasn't sure if this was non-agenda or, do I have to come over?
yeah,
So people can hear you.
yeah, and especially on the people at home and.
I know, I just get nervous talking in public. Hi, I'm Kristen Johns. I live here in Rockport.
And I think you have to give your address, just,
Oh, really?
yeah,
Pascal Avenue? Do I have to
wanna
tell
give
the
your
exact
street?
number?
well, you don't, I guess
I
if you don't
mean,
want to.
I just don't know who's
It's
watching.
more tricky.
Anyway, I do live right down the street at Pascal Avenue. The reason I came tonight, I know I'm a little late to the discussion. Unfortunately, I didn't know it was happening. Y'all voted in October to have the users of the kayaks remove their kayaks over the winter. And I'm just really disappointed about that because I've had a kayak there for like 8 years and we've never had to move them, and I use
know
it
when
year round.
And I appreciate that, Kristen, but we did adopt a policy that day, and that is our policy. So
Okay,
and I appreciate that you would like that not to be.
okay. Well, can I just even ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, is this temporary, or is this is going to be going forward permanently?
Well, it's, right now, what we're trying to do is clear out those kayaks. We understand that about 75% of them aren't even really used. So they're just taking up a lot of town space. And because nobody's had to take any action, like remove them, we just don't have a good handle on how many of them are actually being used.
Right, and that's what
For
I've
all the
heard.
reasons that-
They do bring in a lot of money, I guess, for the harbor.
We're not ending it, it's just that for the winter, we're not providing winter storage to people
Okay.
who use their kayaks. So I think we'll evaluate it, we'll go through this.
Right.
And we'll sort of look at how many kayak racks we really need to have down there, what's an appropriate use of that space with Abby's input.
So it's possible that maybe going forward after this year that they would be able to be used. It's just, It's very-
For using them year-round, is that? Well, you're
Yeah, I
saying
mean, I
that-
use my kayak year-round, so if I have to put it somewhere, I don't, it's just going to be really difficult to bring it down to the harbor every single time I use it. Again, I wish I had known before there was a vote.
Well, I think it's fair to say we're going to see how it goes this year, and I think the Harbor Committee would be a good place to go, or.
Yeah, we can always, it can always evolve, I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah, I haven't seen any kayaks out there in the winter, but,
I just went a couple of weeks ago. I bet I
yeah,
have
that one
been.
Saturday,
That's a thought I hadn't even considered.
yeah,
But anyway, I just wanted to mention it.
yeah.
And, yeah, I guess,
Well, that's good input, thank you.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
totally.
exactly. I just, I kept thinking I should just mention it to someone, even though it had already been decided, in case other people had the same view. I know there probably aren't a whole lot of people that use their kayaks year-round.
Yeah, this is the first time we've heard of that issue.
Right. And I really do. I'm not just making it up. Like, I go out. And the thing is I guess if I had known I was going to have to remove it in November when I paid for it this spring, I don't even know if I would have, because I don't use my kayak in the summer. I know that sounds crazy. I use my paddleboard. I use my kayak once the water gets too cold to walk in.
Right.
And I use it November through like April or May, and then I start using my paddleboard again. So I guess it just kind of seems like I paid, to have the rack for.
And now I guess I don't know what will happen with the policy, so you should keep that in mind in the spring. if
Yeah,
you decide
definitely.
whether to-
Okay, well, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
Okay. Any amendments to the agenda? All right, consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
I move that the board approve the consent agenda as presented, because I didn't see anything changing.
okay. Is there a second? Jim, second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. Great. Next, we have the first action item is act on 2024 harbor fee schedule. And I see we have Addie here.
You should have a memo that I sent around about the fees.
Yep.
Pretty much sums it up. We've made lots of changes probably in the past 5 years and gone up considerably in every category. So this year, my proposal is not to make any increases. Across the board, the Harbor Committee does take a look at all the fees and surrounding harbors fees and try to remain, right, oh, thanks, come on up. So we're right sort of where the Harbor Committee, and, I agree to be right where to be. A little less expensive than Camden, more expensive than Rockland, and just sort of, we're in the middle, both
Yeah.
literally and proverbially, and with what we offer in amenities and, things like that. So, and then you have a little bit more about the overnight dockage revenue factor, because that's we did go up, we doubled the fee for bigger boats, so over 60 feet. We went from $3.50 a foot to $6 a foot. And that seems to be, without impacting any of the access or any of the other people, I think we've been able to make a bit more money in that realm. So I wouldn't suggest going up certainly any more than that. And some of the smaller boaters, we don't want to be prohibitive, and I think we're hitting our targets as far as revenue is concerned. So, yeah. I don't see any need to go up as far as overnight dockage. And we did go up considerably in the winter boat storage. We went up from $2 a square foot to $2.50 a square foot last year. So it sees a couple $100 in changes to people's fees, which, nobody loves, but it's, commensurate to what we're offering, I believe. So.
Yeah, it's pretty primo space.
Yeah.
I just have a question for mental clarity here.
Sure.
Like the categories in the pricing structures.
Yep.
There's like inner harbor resident moorings.
Sure.
And then inner harbor resident, non-resident. I don't like, I don't understand.
The distinctions?
Yeah, when they say resident and then the next one says resident and non-resident. Yeah.
Resident is as far as a resident of Rockport, so
Yeah,
a
is
tax
it resident
paying.
like a year-round?
So we sort of made the distinction. It used to be that they had to be able to vote here, which means they had to be here for 175 days or something like that. And then, I kind of felt like if people are paying taxes for property in Rockport, then we probably shouldn't nickel and dime them for the extra $100 for their mooring. So it went to, if they're paying property taxes in the town of Rockport, they're considered a resident for this purpose.
Okay.
So I think what Michael's confused
Oh,
about
sorry.
is.
Maybe we could say it's like Rockport property owner.
Yeah, I think the question
Tax-
is,
Oh.
the way this.
So to
See how
clarify-
it says resident, both rows there? It says Inner Harbor resident, and then below that, Inner Harbor resident dash non-resident.
On the
So
mooring
I think
section.
Oh, maybe there's just
I
a
think that
typo there.
resident maybe
I
comes
spelled
out.
it out in one because it used to just say res, and there was no reason to say res.
Because what you really mean, isn't it, that Inner Harbor non-resident is the $300?
Yes.
Or non-property owner.
Yep, that's correct. Inner Harbor resident, Inner Harbor. Oh, yeah, and that shouldn't say non-resident. That should not say resident next to it. It should just say,
non-resident.
yes, it just say non-resident, so that's a
Yeah.
typo.
Okay, that helps me. And so a resident is considered anybody who owns property and
Yep,
pays taxes.
and that's defined in the ordinance. It says, for purposes, for the fee schedule, residents consider,
Perfect. I
definitions.
was getting boggled on that.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, anything else? Any other questions, Abby? Okay, I think I appreciate you taking the time to do the research, and
Yeah.
and it's always nice to see that our revenue's above what we budgeted. So
Yeah, that's nice.
it's a happy thing.
Okay, 2 more months to go, right?
Right, in a couple months ago.
Yeah, maybe May and June will be really warm and sunny.
Bring them in.
Hey.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move the board approve the 2024 harbor fee schedule as presented. Or actually, as amended or corrected.
Yeah, it's revoked. Yeah.
Yeah, amended, yeah.
So Kim, and then Jim seconded it. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Okay,
Great.
thank you, Abby.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to your assistant.
Your sidekick.
Okay. Next, we have act on fire department services restitution policy.
Who announces?
Do you want to give us a little background on this?
I can, sure, yeah. I think this is a conversation that probably started before I arrived, and this has been years in the making. But this is an area where towns have discussed these issues for years. In fact, I remember Jim and I talking about this in Hope when we were both over there 15 years ago or whatever it was. The costs that fire departments bear simply because a major highway runs through your town are not insignificant, are even more significant than I anticipated when Chief was looking into this. And we have the luxury of 3 major highways running through our town, not to mention Park Street, which seems to be as much of a highway as any other a lot of nights. And then, let's not leave Union Street out too. So, we have a lot of these thoroughfares that allow people to come through to go from one place to another, but they're not residents. And this policy is really teed up to, much in the same way sort of Abby was talking about, in that to make sure that Rockport residents are really at the forefront of the services Rockport departments are providing, and that those who are passing through and might be doing something that they shouldn't be, that our taxpayers somehow aren't dinged in the process because, we have to be out at a call all night, or because there's damage, or because, any number of different areas that are on this incredibly easy to read spreadsheet. The point being, this is an opportunity in using a policy such as this, and then subsequently signing with a provider, for us to recoup the costs that we're already spending right now on these emergency events that occur, and allow us to make sure that we're covering our costs, one, and only doing so when it's not a circumstance that impacts a resident. So residents are already paying, and part of their tax, part of their property taxes for Rockport's fire department to respond to those calls. If I live in Union and I do something I shouldn't, and I've caused an accident, my insurance company should pick up that cost. And that's really fundamentally what we're talking about with this policy, and the opportunity for Rockport to try to recover those costs. So that's sort of the stage, I think, a bit. And then, Chief, what do you want to add? I mean, you had talked with Union and others, and add the mix.
There was a smaller, similar agreement restitution policy that was approved about 6 years ago when we had the large Burger King tractor trailer rollover that ended up being a DPE, but not to this extent. I met with the Union Fire Chief, Jesse Thompson. Union's been doing this for several years now, and it's worked out very well for them. They, last year alone, received over $9,000 in restitution from insurance companies, and a lot of it is based on car accidents, and as you've heard me speak before, we receive more accidents than any other town in the county. So this could be a potential, good revenue to help offset some of the costs, Speedy Dry that we pay for, the gasoline or the diesel for the trucks, and, the time that the firefighters spend there. So with the amount of accidents we have, if they're not a Rockport resident, there is a high potential of getting some type of restitution.
I think it's great that we're doing this. I remember when Northeast Ambulance did a report and reported that 75% of the Rockport calls were for non-residents in car accidents. And so when we think about what we're spending money on in our town, this is at least something we can do to try to recoup some of that, because we have no control over these intersections. We cannot make 17 and 90 safer.
Put a bubble over it. So the company that I reached out to is the same company that Union's using. Basically, it's a service that they take a percentage if there's a claim that they receive, or if they receive funds. If there's no funds that are exchanged, they don't get paid.
So this is like a third-party billing system
It's exactly what they are.
that specializes in doing these services for municipalities?
That's right.
It is. The good news for us, we work hand in hand with the police department, so I have access to the driver's information, insurance, where, as Chief Thompson indicated, it's difficult for him because it's the sheriff's department, so he doesn't work with them. So sometimes it's a lot more time-consuming for them, where for us, we're right there. I mean, we take the photos for all the car accidents for the PD as it is now, so they want photos, they provide the information, it's going to be a wash. Make it work.
Great. Any questions for Jason?
Yeah, I mean, as I read through this, it was something I'd never heard of before, but I like the concept of it, and knowing there's a good third-party company that's got a track record in doing this.
Right,
That was
we don't
my-
have to invent
That was
this
my
as we
biggest
go
thing I
along.
got thinking of. It's like,
I've submitted, I think, a total of 7 over the years, and I've only got the one for the tractor trailer. I mean, that was a $7,800, restitution, because we were there for 5 hours in the middle of an ice storm. We went through 22 bags of Speedy Dry. I mean, we were there. And we unloaded the entire contents of the tractor trailer of Burger King food. So, but we did. We got restitution for it, so the firefighters got some, and we bought some equipment with it, and it worked out. So that was the only one I've ever received.
and for people just listening in, the money generated from this program goes to the fire department.
I think it goes to the
Capital.
town, right?
Yeah, it goes to town, but it's offsetting an
Oh,
expenditure.
Okay.
It's
So when we have to
offsetting.
buy
Budget line
when we have
is-
to buy the Speedy Dry and the equipment, or if someone ruins a jacket because of oil on it, it'll offset those type of costs.
Yeah. So it comes to the town, we receive it.
Right,
but we'll
we're
be
not getting
credited
a check
to-
directly to us.
Oh,
It'll be
yeah,
made out to the town of
yeah.
Rockport.
But then it's to
it'll recover costs that we've
For the fire
incurred.
department budget.
Yeah.
Right, so when we're looking at a fire department budget, I guess we would start to estimate.
Yep.
How
Yeah.
much,
Revenue,
Yeah.
especially once we have a track record.
correct. I mean, it'll take some time, obviously, to see where we're gonna fall.
Yes.
So
And
what I.
when does this start, if we approve this?
well,
If you agree on it tonight, yes.
I'll sign tomorrow.
Okay, good.
Just like the liquor license, we'll sign that tomorrow and then we can get started ASAP.
The good news is the reporting that we do for the accident, or for our runs, as soon as it's done, I hit enter, and I put it into an email to their email, and it's done. That's all I do. Like, we already have to do our report, so as soon as the email, or our report's done, we save it into the PDF and it goes to them, and that's it. That's all we have to do.
So there's no like training necessary for their
Zero
CAT
training
systems
for
or
us.
anything like that, just, cool.
And so the numbers that you've got in terms of what you would be recovering for, is that based on sort of an analysis of what these other towns have charged for?
Every town's a little different in how they do it.
Yeah.
Some towns, obviously, they specialize more in car accidents, it's all different on what they do and the pricing. If you look at like extrications, not on the sheet you have, extrication, I think every town was $300 on the dot, or 500, I'm sorry. So if they did an extrication, there's an automatic $500 charge for that. And I think out of the 13 towns, everyone was about $500. Some departments for the fire apparatus were $150, some, I think there was one that was as high as $400. So I think it's just a price that they chose, and
Yeah.
we kind of went the middle of the road.
So would extrication be sort of in that fire apparatus?
We don't have it in this one right now, but that's something we're still working with that gentleman. Because again, there's some departments that have like 26 different things in
Yeah.
there. Do you really need that many different things in there for billing, or can we simplify it? And that's what
That's what you're working
so
on.
the gentleman's supposed to, as soon as we hear from you, I'm gonna reach back out to him.
Okay.
We'll make some small modifications if need be.
Yeah,
And we'll
okay.
bring it back.
Yeah.
If we have to change it, we'll bring it back to modify. Because once your policy's set, that's what the numbers are.
Yeah,
But if we have to change things, we'll
if you
bring it
find,
back.
as you've discussed it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Because basically you'll be itemizing certain things. I'm just looking like the town of Milo, it looks like they just do a flat fee.
Yep, and
No.
that was my point, is some
Right,
towns
yeah.
have one, and then if you look, there's some that literally have 27 different things
Yeah,
they charge
yeah, yeah.
for.
yeah,
I mean, where do you draw the line? I mean, the good news is we could try it based on this for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's something that you're not happy with, or
or you realize that
Or we
there's a
realize-
category you didn't include that you wish you had.
we could modify it. I mean, extrication, it's maybe 1 to 3 a year, so. I mean, it's more the hours that we spend there is the biggest thing,
Right, right, the employee time.
so.
Okay.
Cool.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I move the board approve the fire department services restitution policy as presented.
Jim seconded it. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Okay.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you. I have next.
Right, next. Act on ambulance purchase authorization. John?
So, I mean, this is really somewhat of a continuation of the conversation from last time. You know, it was a discussion item, you know, and there's a lot of different pathways to go on this. There's, for the board's knowledge, there's a meeting that I'll be participating in on Wednesday with John and the other town managers from Northeast to hear more about what's next. So
So all four town managers?
all four town managers will be part of that. You know, and this is an evolving conversation, right? And that's sort of every time that someone in some town meets and talks about this, it's sort of all, it takes on a different flavor, a different color, and then it sort of goes in a different way. So, you know, this is all very much a something that's in process. And it goes back to what I said last time, in that it's very difficult to get four towns that are all a little different, to all look at things the exact same way and vote the same way. You got five members of each board in four towns. for manager administrators and, you know, what other different things in terms of chiefs. There's a reason why it's consensus isn't necessarily the easiest thing to strike on this topic. And then you have the differences in each town. So the town of Camden met on just before the Thanksgiving holiday. Their board discussed this, their conversation in terms of where they're moving and where they're going. And I would say that in the same way that your board sort of walked away from the prior meeting of, we talked about it, there are things there are things in process. It's a good idea for us to talk with neighbors. It's a good idea for us to move forward. In moving forward in the conversation, I think that by the end of that meeting, there was some impetus from the town of Camden's perspective to push a little bit and choose a direction. There wasn't a vote to choose a direction from my perspective watching that meeting, but that was, there's a sense that direction is what's needed and staff, and that's sort of where I look at this is from the staff side of this of what, you know, it's difficult to put anyone and pigeonhole any board or any town into a spot to say, this is what you need to do right now with full, you know, sort of, you know, future, you know, have a clear read on exactly how it's going to play out in the next 6 months. 2 days, you know, there's a lot that's still information that coming to bear. The only thing I think Rockport can do is make the best decision for Rockport. And that's what the 5 of you, you know, really are tasked with. A couple things I would probably just question or push back on a little bit in terms of Camden's perspective. You know, there is an agreement that will need to be modified, it would seem, from Northeast at the end of this fiscal year. And so there was some talk in the Camden meeting about an 18-month timetable. I think that there's a potential of an 18-month timetable, but I don't think that puts Rockport or Camden in the best position. I only care about Rockport, but I don't think that thinking about 18-month timetables is, I think, a false sense of security for the town of Rockport. I think we should be planning, and my urging to this group is to plan as if to make the best plan for what will happen July 1 of 2024. And that's all that Rockport can do, is make its best plan for July 1, 2024. And I think there are neighbors who wants to work with us. I think the town of Camden wants to work with us. I think the city of Rockland wants to work with us. Those details still need to be finalized, but I think that there are partnerships to get us to a place together. But there are some decisions that sort of come out of order in this, right? And that's sort of where this topic about this ambulance sort of comes. It's a little bit out of order in that you have a budget process that's going to start at the end of February. like you know, it's not going to wait. And as Chief laid out at the last meeting, there's an offer to have an ambulance to borrow, you know, for a free period of time until the new ambulance were to arrive. And there's options to be able to resell said ambulance if for some reason the town no longer needed it, that according to the dealer, that would be more than what we're already buying. So that somewhat puts it ahead of a budget process, puts it ahead of planning in terms of how you're going to staff. There's that going on. That's sort of one track. And then you also have another track, which is the track that the board, at least these 3 of the board, talked about last spring, which was to work towards a first responder program, and that's sort of pursuing the EMS licensing. Northeast signed agreement to help support that effort. So those are somewhat happening on parallel tracks. And you don't have to make decisions necessarily that one is more important than the other. But I do think that we're at a point in time where decisions are needed and direction is needed so that staff can prepare information for you as you're moving towards a budget process. Because if we wait to follow the budget process, we may be too far down a road that limits our options. And that's the biggest concern I have. So there's really, at this point, there isn't a whole lot of new information from the last meeting to this, other than what was discussed in Camden. But I think certainly more information will come to light. But as much direction as you can provide is helpful for staff, but also being able to make decisions and know that, until the ink is dry and that there's options that you can, how do I say this? You can learn new information and come to better decisions as you move through this process. And I think, your budget process is going to determine a lot in where you're going to go. But that's sort of what I've seen in the last month. But
And sort of the decision point that's being presented to us tonight is to make a decision on this, whether we go forward with the lease of this ambulance. It doesn't necessarily lock us in, but it's obviously an expenditure that maybe we can change our minds on and get our money back, but I'm not sure we want to go forward with that in mind. I mean, I think it's, and the ambulance is just if we don't tonight agree to authorize you to sign a lease for this 2025 ambulance, why is tonight the deadline for that? And just explain a little bit more about the urgency to make that decision tonight.
I want to ask a question. Was it lease or purchase? On here, it's just saying act on ambulance purchase authorization.
it's lease purchase, actually.
I think we lease,
It's
and then
actually
we
lease
end up
purchase.
It's like a car, I think you
Okay.
end up buying it.
Then we end up
after you-
owning it.
You lease to own.
Yeah.
But is it basically that we'd be planning to make a commitment, like, we're going to get an ambulance for ourselves, a brand-new one, and it's going to take a long time for them to build it, and while they're building it, the company has offered us the use of a free one for a year?
That's
or
right.
Something like that? Okay.
That's exactly it.
Okay.
Yep.
And if we stall, and go like, let's decide 2 months from now, that offer, the free one may not be there anymore?
Right, so the offer was extended until January. So basically, by the time you have your next meeting in January, that offer is, or at least the prior offer is off the table, as far as I know. So,
And if
There's
we,
basically services waiting for rigs.
yeah,
Who would buy this if we don't?
yeah, so if we decided to not do this in 6 months, the ambulance company would say, oh, no problem, we'll sell it to somebody else. But you mentioned at a profit to us? Is it like,
Well-
because
Should
we
we
would
get a
own
couple?
it? Yeah, really.
it could be car dealers, yeah.
If we were to actually obtain it
Go ahead.
and receive the ambulance and we start paying on it and we, a month into it, determine the value at that time, obviously, we're paying value of what they're pricing right now. Next year's pricing for ambulances are going up. So every year, everything's going up, like the fire trucks, they go up significantly. So Chris Champagne is the Northeast Regional Director or Manager for Greenwood Emergency Vehicles. He said he could come up and speak if you really needed him to, and what he indicated is if in 6 months we determine that we're not interested or for whatever reason something changes, he said within 30 seconds he can have that ambulance sold. He
Or we
goes,
don't get the
every-
budget approval from our voters.
I'm sorry?
Or we don't get the budget
Correct.
approval from our voters to
Absolutely.
go full-on EMS.
That is correct. Correct.
So it's almost like nothing.
There's a line of them. I mean, on average, it's about 2 to 2.5 years for an ambulance right now.
So it's really a no-brainer. If we're looking forward to the future, this is a no-brainer, because otherwise, we're going to be at the bottom of the list.
I met Wednesday, I believe, in Camden with another company. They were running about a 2-year for one brand and 3 years for another brand. So, I mean, they're so far out that if there's a company or a department that needs an ambulance, they'll do what they can to get one. And like I said, Chris Champagne said it, within literally 30 seconds, he could sell the ambulance.
And looking at your list of the other communities that you've looked into who are making these decisions about moving from.
Is that in here, John?
No, it wasn't. I sent it
Last
to them.
week.
You guys received a
Yeah,
copy.
you sent it out to us.
So I spoke with Melissa Adams at Maine EMS, and she sent me a list of all towns in the last several years that have gone from for-profit type services. The Northeast Deltas, Three Rivers Ambulance, Northern Light, have gone from that type of a service to municipality-based fire EMS, which you did see the list, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's a large list in just the last couple of years alone that are just starting, or in the process, where have already made the change. Some smaller towns, much smaller than us, some much larger than us, one, equivalent to us, that have all made that change from, the for-profit to doing the service themselves as a municipality. It's a really large list.
So that'll be more pressure on purchasing ambulances as
Correct.
people move into
Well,
that.
we've already made a commitment to hire two. We've got 3 people now extra over at the fire station, or 2 extra. So we've made a commitment to do something with those two birds, so
And they'll be cross-trained, right? I mean, the EMS.
One of them's already in
One-
advanced, and the
one of
other's
them
in
is.
EMT school
so, I
now.
mean,
So that fills
I mean,
those,
how,
yeah.
And that was sort of on that path of first
It was
responder,
part of the requirement with our job application.
yeah.
Very,
But
very good
it's true,
point.
we're already starting to, I mean, we're
Very good point.
trying to move along.
Except I don't see a copy of the agreement.
What
Do we
agreement?
actually have an agreement, a piece of paper that spells all this out with them?
We'll have it in front of you. If you vote to move forward with an agreement, then they will draw that up. Because there's VIN numbers involved and all of
Okay.
that would be a part of
So what we
it.
do have, which I think, was this from last week,
Yeah.
That's
or last meeting?
correct. That is from I can't remember the
That's from-
exact name of title for
That was
Chris.
from Chris Champagne, Vice
Yeah,
President of Sales and Marketing.
They will have the actual agreement with all VIN numbers, everything included with pricing and all of that.
And as I understand it, that's for a price of $454,000. We could get a $10,000 discount, but I don't know if we
That's the
qualify.
prepayment, I believe.
Yeah, and we're, that's not
Most,
what we're
yeah,
doing,
most
right?
municipalities don't do the prepayment
Because
unless.
we're doing a lease,
Correct.
and that, at least from Megan's calculations, would be $50,000 a year would be our lease payment.
Right. And that's not including funds and what to do with the Weidman Fund, and that's
Right.
just costs, right?
Yep, that's just.
Not a
out-
net number.
Nope, it's what it would cost us, and we are looking at some other options to find
Correct.
ways to help pay for that, but.
Well, hopefully next month we'll come back with some other potential options for some outside funding as well.
But tonight, because we have the ability, as Kim said, it appears to be a no-brainer to start down this path. And I guess I want to, for those listening and those sort of reading what we're doing, I don't see this as a point of no return for
Correct.
moving down the path of
agreed.
municipal EMS. This is something I think we do have to do. It's an opportunity. It also would be a point of no return if we didn't do this, because then all the discussions during our budget season and analysis of this question would be sort of moot if we can't get an ambulance.
Absolutely.
So
Point.
I think that sort of on balance, it does seem to be something we should do tonight, but any other discussion or thoughts? Okay, do I have a motion?
Yes. I move the board authorize the town manager to sign an agreement with Greenwood to order a 2025 Ford Horton Type 1 ambulance with the ability to rent for no charge a 2017 ambulance until the new ambulance is available for purchase in January 2025.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? No? Are you an Eric?
I'm a no.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't want to put you on the spot, and I don't know if it's even appropriate, but do you want to say anything?
Why I'm voting no?
Yeah, but I don't,
Well, no, I'm just looking at it from a budget standpoint. based on everything we're putting into county 911 and fire and ambulance and everything else. That pretty much burns our budget going into the next year. And we haven't even got to that point yet. So, I mean, we're already looking at what, a 16 to 20% county budget increase, an 8.5% school board increase probably, and I'm just worried that we're gonna overspend, and you're gonna be looking at major cuts in a lot of other departments if we're dumping everything into this one, and I'm not opposed to that. But, I don't know, it's a little scary on my side from the number point. So mine is basically a financial point, because I see there's a lot of different variables and we don't have all the information. And I understand that we need to order the ambulance now so that we don't lose out on the opportunity. But we have to decide, do we want to dump all of our budget increases going into this year into fire and EMS, or are there other departments that need the money?
Yep, and tough balancing. of-
So, until I see the budget, I can't really say yes.
And I know we'll have the meeting this week.
Right.
To get more
So
information.
you give me more information and I might change my mind, but, I mean, if you told me for sure that we can get the money from Weedman and we can use that to pay for this, then I'd be okay. But we're talking $500,000 on top of 2 more firemen and more equipment, and we're looking at like increasing your budget like $1 million in the next year. I mean, that's a big hit. And I'm not saying it doesn't have to happen. I mean, between you and 911 and everything else. But, and I agree, that has to happen. But what's gonna be cut to cover that?
Or you mentioned about possible other funding sources to be being investigated.
Potential for the ambulance, for
Yeah.
like fundraising potentials.
And I'm not
Yeah, and
saying
for the
that,
Weedman Fund, I've got a meeting on Friday. and
Yep.
I've got some favorable indications.
right, and if that comes back as a positive, then hey, all great and wonderful. But, you know, and I understand that your budget might, you know, from Northeast might be $1 million if we don't do this. Too many variables for me to agree.
Yep, I absolutely understand.
Okay,
It's,
well, thank you for that.
again, it's going from one extreme to the next.
Right, and, you know, fiscally, it's a tough bite, so,
And I think we all share those concerns, and it's just a question of
yeah.
sort of what,
Yeah, but I think, I'm not opposed to you voting yes, I think it needs to happen, but I'm gonna have to just say no from that standpoint.
all right?
So that being said, we still have the unknown of the meeting next week on what the numbers will be from Northeast.
I think that's this Wednesday, right?
Is it?
Yes, this
Oh,
Wednesday.
okay.
Yeah.
And then is it realistic to ask, especially with the budget process coming up, is it too soon to ask? Would it be you, Megan, and Jason to put together something for the budget process? So we can see where we're at, and so that we have all the information going forward? Yep, so we can make a. more-
Megan ended up having to leave today, but we were gonna talk. I believe we are gonna create a separate line, so fire, and then like an EMS line that's separate so that you can see it in a separate setup versus putting all the numbers together and kind of burying everything. So I think we're gonna have a full spreadsheet as we do with the budget, like the same setup as the budget with, you know, personnel, equipment, so on and so forth, revenue.
But I will say, speaking for me, I mean, it's sort of in the same line of what Eric's saying, which is, I think it's helpful going into the budget process to talk about what the values are, right, of the board. Because as much as possible, you want to try to match those values up with what I'm bringing you, or at least say, I know you said X, but I'm going to provide you Y, and here's why I went with Y. And maybe I can convince you, but maybe I can't. If the values of the board are at this point of saying, this is what we would like to see, then give me that target, and then I'll provide you that target. So if that's, if the board wants to see a fully fleshed out, in sort of what we discussed at the last meeting, and the board wants to vote on at least providing that option, we can do that, you know? I don't want to, it's easier for me to hit what you want when I know what you want, you know? So if you can do that, that's helpful, you know? And I think it also helps the other towns to know what Rockport's doing, you know, what Camden's doing, what, you know, we're all trying to figure out and read the tea leaves. It's hard.
Is this something that would benefit from a workshop where we could really sort of see what the various options are, what the, I mean, it's a big, heavy new lift for us. And I know we have people who've been thinking about this a lot longer and harder than we have.
Yeah,
But I wonder if there's,
yeah.
it feels like we need to learn a little bit more on this subject.
And I spoke to every one of the fire or EMS chiefs of, you know, Woolwich, Ellsworth, Waterville, MDI, all of them. Any of them said that, you know, if we did have a workshop, they'd be more than willing to come in and speak on the benefits, the reasoning why they switched, and definitely the values of having the full-time staff available to the town or city, whatever, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for whatever's needed. So there's a whole list that I provided on their statements, and they're more than willing to come, any of them, to speak and answer some questions on how their transition went, why.
Yeah.
And yeah, every one of them said the same thing. The number one issue is obviously finances, the budget.
Yep, I mean, that's it's sort of easy if you
the
don't
holy
have to
grail.
think about that, but that's a big, and with more help from Megan, we'll have more answers on the Weidman Fund.
Yeah.
And I wondered also, I had some notes from our last meeting that maybe there are some grants available out there that Orion may be looking into. Still looking. Good. Okay.
Do you want to schedule that? I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm
22nd?
wondering.
That fourth Monday of January?
Yeah, that's not a good one from, well, it might,
Or do you not want to schedule now? We could
well,
sort of
no, I
send
mean, I
out-
think we should, because January obviously is the.
Your meeting's a little early that month, just, it's the 8th because of how it
Yeah.
falls. But the next Monday is the 15th, which is Martin Luther King Day, and then the 22nd's the next. I mean, we could do it any day of the week,
That
but,
Tuesday, the 16th, is that right, if I go after Martin Luther King, the Tuesday after?
let me see. I think that might be okay.
Tuesday is the 16th.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys-
Yeah,
How does that look for the board?
To me, it's good.
The 16th?
The 16th, January 16th?
Yep, that's
How
good.
does that look for you, John?
yeah, absolutely. Like a,
6
like a,
p.m.?
Yeah,
Six?
6 PM here, right, we're still here.
Workshop,
Workshop on EMS.
inviting the other
And
chiefs,
we'll talk more about, who,
if they would come here at that
Yeah,
hour
if
of the
we-
day.
if we want to hear from all of them,
Or
or
we can
what's
Zoom
sort of
in.
selected.
Who wants to drive?
Yeah.
Zoom in.
That's a good idea.
They don't have to drive here, they can just
Yeah, it'd be
Oh,
helpful to
Teams.
hear.
I forget about
just do a
technology.
I know, we've all
Teams
got
call or
our
something.
apps
Yep.
after- Yeah,
that'd work.
There's no point in them driving all the way here to talk to us.
no,
That makes,
no,
Campus
because.
meetings, those on a Tuesday?
Yeah.
Is that
I don't know if
the
that
same-
Tuesday, but I can look.
so tentatively set the 16th?
16th.
I mean, I wouldn't want all 10 or 11 to have to speak, but I mean, if you want to just pick a
Right, if
couple. You have the
either-
list, if you want to pick, I'll let you guys pick who you want.
Yeah, I think, the folks that are sort of similar in size to us, we can look at your,
Whatever, I mean, you don't have to pick tonight on that.
yeah.
That,
But
I
if
mean,
we got a
that's-
handful to just sort of hear
Yeah,
what they've wrestled with within their
Yep.
towns, what pushback, if any, they've had from residents over increasing costs.
Yeah, their January calendar isn't updated yet, so I don't know.
Yeah, they haven't even updated their board members.
We're public, so let's be careful.
So, yep,
Okay. I think that's good, because then that'll give you all, we'll get a
Yeah.
better understanding for ourselves. We can give you better direction of what we want to see through the budget process.
Yeah. That's
Um,
great.
If there are community members who feel strongly they they can come and listen. And,
Yeah,
yeah.
perfect.
Okay. I think it's
Oh,
a subject that
okay.
is owed that kind of time and thought.
And it's not waiting until the budget process, because that's the
No,
fear I
know, That's
have,
the nice thing about doing it in
right?
January, because
Yeah.
then you've still got a
right?
little time.
You can give that guidance before we hit send on that budget.
Yeah. Well, it's a tough subject. I thank you for
Yep.
for all your work on it, Jason, and
Thank you.
Megan and John. And thank you for coming, John. And we'll move on. Okay, next, act on 280 Rockland Street abatement.
So this abatement, as well as the one following this, these were tax acquired properties that somehow missed the conversion from the assessor's office. So this is just reflecting as is, which is, we own both properties, we've owned both properties. So this is the abatement to clear up that in our tax record.
This is basically just reflecting that we shouldn't keep dinging them for tax.
Right.
There's nobody to pay taxes.
Right,
and
exactly.
Just get them off the rolls. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move the board approve the abatement of 280 Rockland Street.
Second?
Sure.
Okay. Oops. Any discussion? All those in favor? Great.
We're moving forward with that.
Okay. Next
That
is
property
for
going away.
Pleasant Street, which is that the same?
Yeah, same concept.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's just
but
a vacant lot? is
Eric's,
it?
to Eric's
Okay.
question, what's happening with it? So here's what's happening with that.
Oh, thank
It's a mess. We're in the period where we have sent a letter to the prior owners, as mandated by state law, to ask them if they will consent to us disposing of the property as we see fit.
Which property is this?
This is 280 Rockland
Okay,
Street.
thank you.
And they have 90-day window within which to respond. And after the 90 days have elapsed, or they've told us, then we can convey the property, we can cash the check, and then write the portion of the check that isn't the taxes or our time
Taxes
and
and
costs.
fees, yeah.
Exactly, and the rest we have to hand over to them.
Okay.
So that's.
It's moving, it's
It's
just
moving, but like
in snail space.
glaciers are saying, we're blowing by you. It's ridiculous.
But there's
Yeah.
nothing else we have to do. It's just let the time pass and then
Yeah,
'Cause
allocate the money.
So the people that were interested in buying it are still on?
Yeah.
Okay.
they are.
They
Yeah,
are.
they're still interested. It's
Okay.
just,
Okay,
they're patient and they're waiting.
yeah. I wasn't sure,
So.
maybe,
I know,
as I
that's a
drove
good
by the other
question,
day, I
yeah.
was thinking, I
Yeah.
wonder if they're still hoping to get it, or
They are,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
That's-
It's
that's
just
Yeah.
irritating.
legalities, yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
yeah, irritating.
So the Mount Pleasant Street then?
Yeah,
That's
it's
a vacant lot, right?
vacant lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move the board approve the abatement for the Mount Pleasant Street lot.
Second?
Second?
Anyone want a second?
Anybody?
Oh,
Thank
I
you.
thought she did.
Oh, you thought my,
No, I thought that was,
Hi,
never
Carl.
mind. I thought Kim had said
we'll
it.
take that as a second.
It was like, I make a motion and nobody wants to second me?
No, I thought Kim had said second, so I was going to, so that's why. Never mind.
Okay, good.
Go on.
Any
I was
discussion?
feeling lonely, no.
All those in favor? Jim, are you a yes? Jim, are you a yes on that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't want to.
deaf in that ear, I guess.
That's why you sit over there on that side of me.
How'd you guess?
Okay, next is act on CMP application for pole underground location. John?
Okay, I measured this from the intersection of John Street, Camden Street. I think it's in Camden, but CMP says it's in Rockport, so who am I to tell them no? But it's real close, if so. But I don't think Camden or Rockport are going to have an issue with a pole location right over there, so.
So I couldn't figure.
Why do we do this?
From the diagram, I couldn't figure out where the heck.
This is
This is on Camden Street?
on Cameron Street.
At the intersection of Route 1?
Well, 740 feet from the intersection.
Oh, okay.
So that,
Line's kind of funky through there.
right, it kind of comes at an angle, and so I think it's short, but that's,
So it's 740 feet, like
So-
near the dog park? or
yeah,
something like
it,
that?
right near so the pump station is like almost on the line. So but it comes at it diagonally, so I'm not, it's right in that area though.
Okay.
Like that sort of, the pump station and, yeah.
Well, and if we don't own it, then it's CMP's problem. We've given them approval, but if we aren't the ones to give approval, yeah, right.
Our problem with CMP isn't that we put the poles in, it's that we can't get them to take the old
Well,
ones out.
that was my other question. Is there an existing pole that they're replacing, or is this just a totally brand-new?
No, it's a new pole because the existing poles don't require our approval.
Well,
to
I
do
know,
so.
but I mean, like, I would like to use these
Leverage?
at this
Oh, I see what you're
opportunity,
saying.
when they need us to approve it, I would like it to
Right.
be conditioned on them removing
Any old
the
ones,
Yes.
old ones that are in the same.
unlike the broken one that's.
You're not gonna
on
get 'em
Park
to do
Street
that.
and-
It's, I've been through all that.
Even just this,
FCC is in charge of all, pole replace, pole work that goes on, AT&T, whoever else is, Consumer, everybody that's up there now runs through FCC. So if you got a problem,
even CMP.
you get a hold of FCC in Washington DC, and they'll give you a case number, which I got a long time ago.
Well, I don't know, Ally over here got them to take out the old pole. She just called
Just
CMP
that
and
one,
said, I
right?
think you have an extra pole here.
Yeah,
And it worked, but that's unique.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
We also talked about putting her on the case of all of these because she did such a good job.
that's right.
But,
And we are working on a pole ordinance, so
Yes.
we may have
Move
something.
the board approve CMP application for pole underground location.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Assuming it's ours.
Yeah.
yeah,
exactly.
right, I mean,
It is. We got our permission. All right, next is act on 2024 Freightliner 108 SD lease purchase.
so we just talked about how sometimes you order something and it takes a really long time to get it. This is one such vehicle. I think this originally went out to bid a year ago, so, you know. Anyway, we need to act on the financing, the lease purchase of that, so,
So we've already authorized buying it. and
Absolutely.
It's all gone through, and now we just need to approve this purchase.
What?
Right.
I see it's a 2024 Freightliner truck, but what is it?
oh,
for?
Public Works,
Public Works truck, okay.
Is it a
Okay.
dump truck?
yep,
Okay, so big,
7-yard dump truck.
okay.
So it's,
I think like,
you don't know how many, no, I.
You don't know what a 108 SD is?
I have not,
You,
but I knew the price tag implied that it was something big.
Something
it's
big.
a big one, yes, yes it
Okay.
is, yes.
And I know the interest rate is, but I'm just like, yikes, is that what interest is these days?
That's
We were
low.
so lucky for a while to have.
I know. We were,
Good rates.
yeah, it's not a bad number. And we put this out, so this isn't,
Yeah,
there
The
aren't a
best
lot
of
of
both.
banks that offer this product in terms of the lease purchase and the way that works. In fact, we've talked to local banks about the option of trying to provide this product, and they just don't want to do it. So Androscoggin Bank is the entity we use for this, because they're the only ones that really are the only game in town. But
Comes out.
as Eric said, the rate's fine, so, I mean, it's not fine as of 4 years ago, but
right,
a lot of things were different then, so.
okay. Any questions? Should we have a motion?
Who wants to make a motion?
Who
Well, it
wants to
doesn't
make
say.
the motion? I don't see the motion.
Well, there's not.
It's
Oh,
all
we're
of this.
missing the motion. Oh, it's, okay, does somebody have to read all of that?
Sure. well,
Read it.
All right, who
Can't
wants
say
to?
as presented.
You could,
Want me to read
I
it?
guess you could. I mean,
I'll read
as long
it.
as all 5 of you agree to say whatever it is you want to say that you agreed to this. I
Michael says
suppose.
Michael says he'll read it.
Want me to read it? Okay. Ready for story time? Okay. I'm making a motion that it was voted by the Select Board for the Town of Rockport, Maine as follows. One, and this is previously, right? That a capital acquisition project consisting of the lease purchase of a 2024 Freightliner 108 SD with associated equipment is hereby approved. And two, that the financing for the project in the principal amount of $234,920 is awarded to Androscoggin Bank at an interest rate of 6.75%. And number three, that the town manager is hereby authorized to execute a lease purchase agreement for the project and all other documents reasonably necessary to accomplish the purpose of this vote in his capacity as town manager or in his capacity as town treasurer, as the documents may require. And number four, that the Select Board hereby confirms its determination that the term of the lease does not exceed 120% of the economic life of the project. And finally, number five, that said lease is hereby designated a bank-qualified tax-exempt obligation of the town for the 2023 calendar year under the provisions of Section 265B3 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended.
Okay, maybe you'll get a second this time.
Second.
Okay, you got a second this time.
I think Eric won that one.
All right,
Sorry,
any
Mike.
discussion? All those in favor? Okay,
Okay.
well done. All right, moving right along. Okay, now we're into discussion items. The first is discussion on the comprehensive plan section, governance and finance.
For the printed.
It's included in this packet, it's still mostly in there, but I passed it by Megan and
Oh, goody.
Megan did her number stuff, so the numbers are actually accurate, more accurate
See,
than this.
strike-throughs.
What the hell are we trying to
All right, so,
Yeah.
This is what I said last night. I'm like, this is worthless. We need strike-throughs.
so this, let me just clarify. So this is from the 2004 comprehensive plan, what was in our
So-
packet.
What's in your packet is modified from the 2004.
Oh, it
comprehensive.
has been modified.
Correct, yeah.
Oh,
What
okay.
I put into the Word document.
What's wrong
So
with that?
I didn't want to do red line version because it's going to be a lot of red ink. And it would be very difficult to read. The 2004 comp plan, which, I pulled those relevant sections, you can read through those so that you can understand, and I encourage you to read through where Rockport was at that point in time.
But Orion, so what was attached to our packet is your current working draft of these sections?
Correct.
So
That
the-
right there, what I just gave you is the most updated version of that.
No,
and
I get
with-
that,
With
yeah.
Megan's edits included.
Yeah, I'm just, because the bottom of it is approved by
Has the old-
voters, November 2, 2004. Yeah, this is what
Yeah,
was,
this is the old comp plan, and then later on with it.
Okay. The little bottom stuff is irrelevant.
She,
I don't
remember,
know.
I had asked the copy, have the copies of the old,
I thought they also 2004 at the bottom.
Yeah, they all
yeah.
say 2004 at the
So
bottom.
then
We didn't
mine
get
didn't
anything new.
I don't think, I
No,
don't
but
think,
now we
yeah.
have-
Okay, well.
Well, that explains
think-
my dilemma text I sent to Denise
Yeah, I
last night.
think,
Yeah, because I said,
Oh,
this is just
Well,
old.
there was a slight issue then, but, yeah, so then what you have in your packet is just the 2004 comprehensive plan, relevant sections to that. So you can take that with this red line version, which I sent to John. John can forward it on to you, but there's a couple of sections in this document that still need Megan's input, just from questions that I just can't answer. It's
Of the
better
one you
suited-
just gave us tonight.
Correct.
Okay.
Better suited coming from her, and then John putting his edits to it if he's thinks something else should change. But then from there, this would be a good baseline for you all to go off of. What is before you right now. And then there are some comments that I've placed in here that are requirements from the state, so I kind of kept that verbiage the same. If you feel like it's just totally going to work here and you want to reword it, be careful with it, but it is, because it is a requirement from the state. So,
Can you back up and just tell
Sure.
us what we're doing here? What are
Sure.
we looking for to come out of these sections
Okay,
in this document?
so the government section, we'll start with that one. This one's technically not a requirement in the comp plan today, but if you want it in here, and I encourage us to probably have a section in here about government and Rockport in general,
to have it in here, there's no state requirements on this, so you can kind of make it your own. The implementation and strategies table at the end is kind of like the cheat sheet of what we're really going to be doing. And then all of the paragraphs above, that's kind of your meat, your reason, your rationale into it. And so later on, and actually in the fiscal capacity section, what you're going to see is like a conditions, an analysis, and then a recommendations section. So the conditions is kind of where we're currently at. Your analysis is the analysis of said conditions. And then those recommendations are where we want to go. So that's kind of what we're getting at here. Analyzing what we're currently at and where we want to take our next steps to be in the next decade.
In terms of how our government is formed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And again, I want to set the stage a little bit for the 2003. The 2003 comprehensive plan, or 2004, I should say, 2004 comprehensive plan took, there's the overachievers always in every classroom, right? So this group, Jeff was among them, they overachieved, right? They didn't do the bare minimum that sort of passes, try to get, you need to do these 10 things from the state to have an approved comp plan. They delved into areas that were more about the cultural, not just cultural, but what is Rockport, what makes Rockport what it is. Not requirements, but they were meant to be the fundamental sort of building blocks for what the town was going through at the time. Eventually, it led to the charter. It led to a revaluation. It led to a whole bunch of things that weren't directly called for in this, but we're sort of working towards that. As again, I was on the board at that time, so I remember this pretty well. But on the other hand, you don't need a governance section. You really don't need to do that. You read through that, and they're like, well, the budget committee needs a larger role. We've been talking about this with this board for the last 18 months, and I think
I know, that's where I ran into her, and I was
Yeah.
like, this doesn't make sense.
Right.
The whole thing is just, what did we say?
So that was very much reflective of Rockport 2003. There was a lot of pressures, and how do we control spending, and
And we didn't have a charter, so.
didn't have a charter. Now, what the five of you might think about, what are the issues, Is it how quickly you can make decisions? Is it the use of special town meetings? Is it,
Isn't that in our chart? I mean, I would suggest that our charter
Yeah.
is really our comprehensive plan for government. That's.
In large part it is, yeah. It's your
It would be silly, in
constitution.
a way, to create a new document that says, oh, we wish
No.
we'd done it this way, but we just did these charter revisions. And
Yeah.
if we think we should be doing something differently from a government perspective, we should convene a charter commission, and,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just throwing that out as I'm,
But does this go into more clarity,
Less,
less clarity
yeah.
than the,
It's higher, it's a higher level,
yeah.
You know,
In the
it's a higher
charter, we've
level-
already implemented a lot of what's implemented.
it's,
yeah.
it's preamble of the Constitution, not Article 1 or Article 2. You know what I mean? Like, that's
And
sort
that
of
makes
the,
sense for this time, because there wasn't a charter yet, so this was
Right.
like trying to set things up to do a charter.
yeah. And I would say, but there are, I think you could, let's say you wanted to say that we were going to if there were sort of policy needs that are of a charter, but aren't necessarily, you want to take action with it, making a charter arrangement. I mean, again, this isn't necessarily the board. So that's the other thing. The comp plan committee saying, and that's usually who writes this, says, oh, we think it should be this. Sometimes they're in conflict with what the board thinks, right? So in this case, we're sort of saying, board, what do you think? Because that part hasn't been created. There isn't a group that's driving that bus. There was in 2003, 2004 on the comp plan committee. So,
and to refresh my memory and for those watching, this is like 20 years ago.
yeah.
And how often is it supposed to be updated?
10 years.
Isn't it?
Every 10, okay.
But,
So yeah. So
But-
it's good that we get this, and this is a section of one
Yes.
of, one of 12 sections, is it?
12 sections.
the 2004 comp plan's this thing.
Oh, I know, it was
Yeah.
like, had so much.
It's highly repetitive.
And
And
let
no
me,
offense to the high achievers and
Right.
overachievers.
absolutely.
Yeah, no,
But
no.
I would love to end up with a comprehensive plan document that is user-friendly, that we refer to, and we're not overwhelmed by and never want to open because it looks so daunting. I mean, I think it would be good if it
That's
was
the
sort of a
goal.
roadmap and people, it was easy for people to refer to what it provided.
And like I say, now there's a charter, so that
Right.
takes
Right.
a lot.
Off the government section, because
Yeah.
it's,
So, yeah.
And let me, just to step back from the comp plan thing. The comp plan, the concept of a comp plan has its roots in the 70s. And there was a lot more state funding, a lot more involvement in the state government in comp plans through the 80s, the 90s. And slowly, state government has atrophied and stepped away from their support of municipalities. For example, the state planning office, was overseeing the advancement and the training for all code enforcement officers and plumbing inspectors, and that's gone. Like, that's like 8 governors ago that they've sort of completely blown this up. So at that time, in 2003, there still was sort of a tether to the municipalities and the state. Now, I know we need to get state approval. The agencies have to bless this and say, oh, we agree with this. I think, from my perspective, from where I sit, all of that's hooey in terms of what matters at the state level. The most important thing is that sheet, that short sheet that Denise is talking about. What are the 10 things you want to do as a town? What are the 10 things?
we as a town agree,
Yeah,
gives us select board
high-minded.
guidance, we're, yeah.
You know, it's the idea of this is that they aren't, like, we don't go out and ask everybody, what do you think about this? But the big issues of the day, do we think, it doesn't speak to change policy, but it's meant to advise those who create policy. And so as a result, if this document says, all houses should be painted purple, then it doesn't change all houses being painted purple, but it tells Orion, the planner, it tells me, the town manager, the 5 select board, all planning board, oh, we need to start working in that way, right? And it's the playbook that allows us to sort of start running instead of looking over our shoulder every minute. What does the community think about?
And maybe bridges that gap between 3-year select board terms, so if you have an ever-changing direction and policy,
Yeah.
but maybe there's at least something that on the big issues is consistent, at least for 10 years.
Right.
Would it be right to assume that back in the 70s and 80s, a lot of smaller towns didn't even address any of this?
Yeah.
So they were just kind of flying blind?
Yeah.
Reactionary?
Yeah. I mean, there were more hooks in the state to say, oh, you want funding for that? We're not giving it to you unless you have an approved comp plan.
Yeah.
Now there's no money, so come at us. I mean,
But
it's-
it had its purpose.
it had its purpose. And, that was when shoreline zoning came in. There was zoning in Maine. So it was sort of like, we're trying to give you the tools to manage the growth of your communities at the same time. The problem is that, obviously it's controversial, and it's an easy thing to cut at the state level because it's not a direct service that we see as Maine taxpayers, It's another thing where the state says they're gonna provide a service and they don't provide the funding for it.
But it
Unfunded
would-
mandates.
I'm guessing it also potentially prevent something like 4 towns all contiguous, have one idea, and then another one right next to them is like, we're gonna do something different. We're gonna let industry come in, whatever. I mean, to help over this, have a little bit more of a
Well,
comprehensive idea for the state.
I wouldn't say it goes into regional planning is part of this. The regional planning, groups are involved in reviewing these. I think that most of these comp plans have become so toothless, honestly, in terms of what they actually change, that there's very little meat behind that idea. But
That was
but
the
it also
concept.
is meant to like enable, everyone to speak with their voice, right? In that same way, like, let's take it out of this area. Let's say Herman really likes the idea of Dice Arts and wants to have more businesses like Peterbilt and everybody else around Dice Arts. That doesn't work for Hamden, but it works for Herman. Those distinctions can sort of, they're different towns, but they're allowed to speak with a voice that represents who they are, right? Whereas what the state is looking at is, do you have, are you looking at all your historical, your key areas, your growth areas? Are you identifying areas where you want development and growth? What else? What else am I missing here? I mean, that's sort of idea. They want you to have asked yourself the questions that you should be asking. Like, we met with somebody the other day about housing and what's going on, and they're like, "Well, you should really know where you want to go." We're like, "Right, that's what this is, right? That's where's your infrastructure? Where are your major routes of traffic? All those things that we know in the back of our heads, but maybe we don't put on paper. This forces us to put it on paper."
And sometimes when you do that, you realize you don't really know it as well as you thought you did. All of a sudden, it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But we're given this tonight so that we can review it,
Yeah.
give our thoughts, considerations before the next meeting.
Yeah, and you'll be getting another one, because I said there's a couple of sections that there aren't answers. Megan is providing them. So,
And keep in
Obviously
mind
those.
that it would be really nice to find ways to like really streamline this.
absolutely.
I think he's,
So even though
Keep
it's
in
like-
I mean,
mind
I think it
all of
was.
this data is pointless because it's
Yeah,
in
the
our
more
annual, it's
granular
in
you
our
get about-
annual report anyway, and you list debt and values of properties, and you update this once every 10 years. This is, as soon as you hit print, this is worthless.
I know. I'm with you.
Yeah, and if you don't have to have that level of granularity
So the government section, for sure. And the fiscal capacities, each of those paragraphs is kind of a required portion of it.
I saw that.
And,
give a historical. reference.
yeah, I mean, some of it, I agree
Yeah,
with.
I'm
Yeah,
reading
I
that's-
agree
that's
with your
fine to
point
have
on
The changes.
The
in
moment.
Mill levy.
Oh, I
changes in
understand, but why does the state even bother on a pointless document that is worthless the minute you hit print?
I think-
On 90% of it, because all those numbers are invalid. Like,
Then you can see them, it's a reference.
that's what the annual report is for, just like a stockholder's report is for a corporation.
Oh, these are beautiful, though. There's a lot of work that went into these.
No, I'm
Well,
not
and
saying
that's
that the
thing,
work
you can
isn't
get so carried
valid.
away with
No,
loving
But
our-
I'm just saying, the state requirement to having this part of this document is almost pointless, and it's just burning time and should just be removed.
I agree, and I think what
If-
John said is
and-
probably more true to the point. For like, you want to have all this stuff, great. You need to have a comprehensive plan. If you're going to have a
Yeah.
comprehensive plan, you need to have this. So this forces you to reflect on your fiscal capacity.
Yeah. Of
Are
which
you
could-
massively in debt, or are you not?
Yeah,
massively
of
in
which
debt?
you can go get the annual report and go,
Yeah,
Well, but you know what, that also means you've got a board that's paying attention to those things. You got a town manager, you got a,
well,
and-
right, if it's a small town that doesn't
Right.
do anything.
Exactly.
Then this makes sense.
Exactly.
But if you're us or any other town around or the
Right,
city of
there are
Portland
many
or
opportunities.
Bangor, this is pointless.
Yep.
We're just wasting time
Yep.
Yes.
reproducing the same thing that we produce every single year, with the exception of where are our growth points? And that's what we should be focusing on.
Yep.
What can we
Hands
do
down
with
with
the available space that we have? Not all these numbers.
Yep. So a lot of comprehensive plans, what they do is this section gets placed into the appendix.
Yeah.
It's like, it's
Right,
not
or
something to
see
really
annually.
I know,
highlight
but
right
it's
at the front.
just such a waste of your time.
Hey,
one of the things that I
And
you and I
that's
haven't
my whole
talked
point.
about this, but I think it's really important. We've since we've gone to a full-time planner position, you know, even I've struggled at times to say like, well, how much latitude can you give Orion to go out there and do it, right?
Right.
And that's a hard thing to say because right now we have a 20-year-old document that says what's important and what isn't. The town of Rockport looks a lot different than it did 20 years ago. And if we can say with one voice, this is our comprehensive plan, and we're going to give our planner, you know, free range to go out there and accomplish what all of us said we want in our comp plan, that's a pretty powerful thing and gives him some flexibility to, and some room to work within that right now he doesn't have. He's hamstrung in that too. And I think, you know, whether it's grants, whether it's working with developers, whether it's, you know, trying to find avenues where we can maximize our taxable valuation, his hands are tied right now. So this process, getting this off, not only off of his plate.
But getting this voted
No, no,
on,
it
getting
needs-
this done and approved.
I'm
and-
not,
No, no, it needs to
That
get
needs
done.
to happen.
I'm just saying that by the time you hit print,
No, I agree, yeah.
and we've listed our mill rate, it's already
It's
changed.
ignored, yeah,
I'm
right.
with you.
And we list our debt here. Well, guess what's gonna happen come the end of the year? She's gonna ask for all these bonds that we've been sitting on to do, and all, it's all gonna be
Well, the debt,
useless.
you just approved some bonds that
Right,
were.
it's not gonna be
the
here.
228,000.
And now you've gotta change it again.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm with you.
and then I don't understand the whole point of why are we listing the different types of taxes that the state does? And then you've got the property homeowners exemption at 25,000, but didn't they just change it to 30 on certain age groups, or that's what they're considering still? You know,
that's
maybe
still-
just reword, if you're gonna have to keep that in, I would
Which section?
reword, oh, it's at the bottom of like the 6th page or something.
Oh, yeah, you gotta put page numbers in too. in the
1,
draft.
2, 3, 4, yeah, the bottom of the 6th page, you've got state property, business tax, blah, 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 property tax exemptions, 25,000.
Do you, and is this all required, Orion, or is?
Property, the tax exemption property?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, that
I-
one, I've got a comment on there.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
not, that table is not required.
Yeah.
It
I
was
would take
just,
it out.
it was in the 2004 comprehensive
I
plan.
would, yeah, not be
We
too bound
updated the
by what's
numbers.
in there.
I put a question, if y'all want to keep it, we'll keep it. If y'all want to scratch it, we'll scratch
Yeah,
it.
all right,
And in
good.
your judgment too, if it's not really helpful or useful for what you need to know,
Yeah.
I mean, if it, let's just.
Well, so if,
just
I,
move
like I
on.
said, I
Because the
encourage you to
problem is
read.
get to this stuff and you're just like,
Yeah. If,
And then you
if
can't
if your
even
mind can bear it, I encourage you to read the 2004 sections that I sent you.
Yeah.
And you'll see, it's like 33 some odd pages. This is much shorter.
Right.
I've cut out what I already think is not relevant, and
but
Megan
you're
has
also saying you
cut a
think
few
there's other
things.
stuff in here that is still not
Yeah,
relevant.
well,
right?
there
This
is, but
isn't
it
your
was,
best and
I don't have a
final.
clear, I don't have a clear opinion one way or another. Does it hurt anything? No. Does it take up space? Yes.
Takes up
Is it-
space, takes up mind space from the stuff that you.
Does it hurt
should be
anything?
Focused on, in my view.
Yeah.
So if that's, we'll review it.
Yeah,
And-
if the five of you say, then
It's gone.
that's great, that's great for him, and his draft just got thinner, it's closer to what
I
Denise
want to
is
see all of you
looking
with
for, I love
red
it.
pencils
Yeah.
and your comments.
Remember,
like
you're
every
on that,
teacher.
this is your big job. You're the
I know,
editor.
And-
I'm on the group, and.
Great.
And the one last thing is, so don't worry about the format. The format, this is just structured to make it easy to edit on. It's going to have a whole different format. Some of the charts will look a little different. It's just easy, streamlined in the current process.
I just wish it was more useful or relevant in terms of what we can, what you need to put in it as
Yeah, so
compared
let's keep
to.
looking for a way to do that
Yeah.
where we can,
I
and
mean-
we're allowed to, because that's,
Sure.
I mean, if we're, I don't know, it just seems pointless to say, here's the annual report that's got all that data in it anyway.
Yeah.
And then say, oh, here's the comp plan, and then you're looking at something that's out of
Yeah.
date come June 30th.
right, and if it's a 10-year plan.
But we're gonna vote on something that's immediately outdated,
No. No. I know.
which, I mean, the growth portion and where we can develop and things like that, now that isn't outdated.
No.
It's this,
That's where the real work is.
right, it's this,
The filler is.
the filler is,
No.
I mean, you hate to ask people to say, oh yeah, let's vote on this, and this part of it is,
I know. I know.
Yeah, and remember, as much as you want guidance from us, you understand this way better than we do.
Well, these two sections, I'm really kind of leaning on John and Megan. So I put it into
Yeah.
a format, and yeah, Megan's doing, like I said, quite a bit of
Well,
the
I'm in
blue
favor
is
of
hers. John's got to do some
Too
work.
much of a dictator.
and
I'm in
then
favor of getting rid of the government section because we have a charter.
Get rid of it.
And
Yeah.
I don't know why we'd quibble over words and language that
Sounds good to
might
me.
just be because it's inconsistent in some way with the charter.
Yeah, well, that's what I got hung up on immediately, is I'm like, yeah, we just voted
Yeah, we
on
just
all
did.
this, and
Yeah.
that can't say any of this.
The only thing I would say are maybe if there are directions that the board wanted to go that would either, one, call for a charter commission because it's a major
Well, that's the question I
change.
wondered, is because there is some sense that maybe long-term, we might want to look into a town council form of government. And I'm not saying for anybody watching, we're not about
That's
to
not what we're
undo
planning.
everything that we do and the way we do it in Rockport, but long-term, is that something that we would at least want to evaluate the pros and cons for the town? And that's not anything I want to take on, or, but
Right. Yeah.
but in terms of a 10-year comp plan under government is, but I think
That
it
would
would
be a
just be a
legitimate
lightning
question.
rod. And it is a legitimate question, but does it just create
Right,
people worried that we're about to take away their vote?
right, right.
And we are not.
And we're not.
Right.
And this system works, we like it, there's good citizen engagement, so,
So we'll get back next month, is that it?
yep. That's the
Sounds
plan.
great.
And who's reading these when they're done, besides you?
Well, there's a process, but, so this section is the first section to kind of come out of my realm right now. So once I'm done with all the sections, because a lot of them, they bleed into each other in some manner, so I want to make sure there's good continuity between each of the sections. So once I'm comfortable with it, then I got to find somebody to put their eyes on it.
This is an outlier.
Yeah, but I
though.
mean,
Yes.
when it's done,
When
it's
it's
really
done,
just
done.
whatever it says is in your, I mean,
Third
the average
party.
citizen isn't picking this up and reading it.
Nope.
And there was a lot of public process earlier when you were getting input from people about what they wanted in the comp plan.
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, that's a good point. I'll add into that. It's not what Orion wants. That's just not my opinion on any of that. It's taking all of the data collected, all the public engagement, interpreting that, and then putting that into the document to guide the community. So the community, for the most part, says they want balance on development. They understand something's going to have to happen. In order to get taxes down, we have to do some development, but we don't want to eradicate everything. So what's that balance take? So that pretty much resonates throughout the whole document.
And so when was that collected? I mean, was it like surveys or something like that? or was it
Yeah,
just-
there was some surveys in 22 and 23, there were some meetings.
And good outreach. I mean, there
Yeah.
were the postcards and the QR codes, and
Yeah.
you've
Good,
got,
There was good outreach. I mean, given it was pretty much done during COVID, it was a
Yeah.
pretty good participation rate.
yeah.
So-
And that's all the more reason why we need to get this done, so that
Yes.
that data is still good and useful.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
still relevant.
And the people that
Yes.
gave input can see
Yeah.
how
Yes.
it's being utilized.
Yeah, so your schedule then, because for the June ballot, to have this on, this really needs to be
It's like
final.
March,
March.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. So February,
Right.
done. I will get that.
Okay,
And then we have to get it out to state agencies in the process, so
Yep.
while we're,
Yeah, and I've been
talking
talking
about
with our attorney about how to word our question, because sometimes the state agency might take a little longer, and I told him that was giving me a little bit of anxiety. So there's a way to word it to where as long as there's not substantive changes, then we can make those changes after the vote.
so we can have the vote, and then the state agency can give the feedback after the vote, so
Yes.
that doesn't have to hold us up.
Yes,
Right.
Good.
yes.
it's that part of the process isn't all that fun. It's
No.
kind of mind-numbing.
Yes.
Don't worry about that. We'll get that part figured out, but
Okay,
Cool.
good,
All right.
thank you.
What's next?
Yeah,
We have two more discussions.
2 more discussions.
Next one's the fun one.
Yeah, okay, discussion on Camden Select Board wastewater recap. John,
We recapped it.
you want me to start?
do you want,
Okay.
I could start, but
I'll,
I'll let you go.
So last week, Denise and I took a field trip I went to the Camden Select Board's meeting last Tuesday. The reason for this is that we had learned that the Camden Select Board was going to discuss Rockport's payment. Well, excuse me, they were going to discuss the rate that Rockport was paying, which really wasn't why we had asked for them to have a discussion. It was really in reference to the fact that, as the board voted at their last meeting, that we issued a check to pay for all outstanding payments for wastewater charges up to this year, up to this fiscal year. And then and subsequently to this year, we've made all payments reference to the rate that we obtained from the town of Camden in July. And that was built into your wastewater budget. And we've made 2 payments in kind of using that rate. There's been a little bit of some difficulty in some members of the Camden board understanding where that rate comes from, why that rate was agreed to, why is Rockport choosing to pay whatever rate it wishes, so forth and so on. And so I think for me, and certainly Denise can say, but I think there was a real need after 2.5 years of going through this, from my seat, and longer for Denise. I wanted to be in the room and be able to say with our own voice, well, actually, this is what, so we were able to clarify the amount of money that we're talking about. That's that's a difference between that 15% or not, which is $27,000. And to clarify that there is a lawsuit going on still. There's a stay. It's been put off, but there is a lawsuit that Camden is still is suing Rockport over. And I think also, and I think probably Denise can speak to this best because she really put it, I think, succinctly for everyone. There is an opportunity here for all of us to just come from wherever the towns are, wherever the 5 of you are, wherever the 5 of their board are, and to say, this is what we want, this is what you want, let's figure out what's in the middle, and then let's all go on our merry way. And unfortunately, that conversation didn't happen with the Camden board. They really weren't able to sort of do that. That was a disappointment.
Although some of their
from my
members
perspective.
agreed that they need to sit down with Rockport and talk, so I
Yeah.
think I never got any final, there were different things said by, I'm sorry, John.
No. I agree. I just, I'm disappointed that that they were unable to be far enough along in that conversation to be able to at least offer that opinion.
Right, and
That's
nothing
really
ever
where
got
I'm-
pulled together as to what the view of the board was. We just
Yeah.
heard from individuals
I-
about,
I watched that, and I kept
Yeah.
thinking, for a couple of the board members, like, okay, they get it, but then later, something would be almost contradictory from the same person, especially about the
Yeah.
15% and all that stuff. And at that point, I was thinking, I wish we had the opportunity to just sit together and say, do you remember?
right.
This was what this was. It was, yeah.
And I
I
think
came
the
away
challenge
from it
is
going,
we are
"What?"
all much more informed and engaged on this than most of them are.
So we're kind of talking 2 different things, though. We got the lawsuit and then the 15%. Because the lawsuit was prior,
Right, we have paid all the money that's owed under the lawsuit.
Correct.
More than $400,000 in
So
the
the-
last year.
so the lawsuit wanted us to pay, Camden wanted us to pay what we owed them
And we've
as
done
of June 30th, or whatever the timeframe was.
The end of the fiscal year.
So
yeah.
we've done that.
Yeah.
And I watched the meeting too, and they're like, we can't make a decision on the lawsuit. I don't know why. We've paid the balance that was requested in the lawsuit. That's the part that confuses me. I mean, what is it gonna take for them to decide to take an action?
I think
mean,
they
I know you
want their
can't answer
attorney's
that because
advice.
that's something they have to answer.
And I think they want their attorney's advice. I think without Bill Kelly there, they just felt like they didn't really know what they could agree to. I totally agree
I
with
mean,
you,
they could have
Jen.
asked before the meeting. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
this isn't new.
Yeah,
That 15% seemed like it was almost being taken as Rockport's being a rebel, and they're just saying, we want 15% because we want it. And that's not what it
Well,
is.
some of them didn't understand what the 15% was.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, well, come on,
because it was not explained to them, I mean, really.
you know?
Well, and I think
And it was just for the current,
Right.
Well, it was agreed to
From-
in
from July
mediation
1st
that
on,
we not
correct?
have to pay it.
And they seem to discount your memo that was presented them, that Camden gave us that rate, whether it came from the town manager, whether it came from the select board. It was presented from Rockport to Camden. That's an internal issue they have, and we're getting the brunt of that.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's time to grow up and,
I was encouraged at one point when somebody did say, well, hold it, if our town manager said this,
Right.
then we should uphold that. And I thought, well, that's smart,
That seems
but then
fair.
it fell apart.
Yep.
So I'm gonna be optimistic,
Yep.
in case anybody's watching, I'm gonna be optimistic that we can resolve this, because it did seem like information was not being consistently discussed.
And we do have, the lawsuit at least is stayed. I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
we want it dismissed, but right now it's stayed, so at least we're not incurring ongoing legal costs for the lawsuit. But I think the question needs to now be asked, it's time to dismiss. You know,
well, I
we
know
need,
the question came up in their meeting about having some sort of a workshop, and I know one of the select board members said, you know, hey, we need to talk to
Yeah.
our attorney to find out if we really should, because
because of the litigation.
if you watch enough Law and Order, you know, the attorneys have to talk to each other, not the parties involved, and so that's,
Yeah, so if that's holding us up from being able to talk to each other, is the idea that there's this lawsuit hanging over us. Let's take care of the lawsuit so we can then start talking.
Yeah.
so do we know where we're at now, or?
I don't.
No, I think, I think it's a fair question to have Dan reach out to Bill now and say, they've paid everything under the lawsuit. Dan being our attorney and having him call their attorney to say, why aren't we dismissing the lawsuit now? We got the immediate stay because we needed to get something done before December 5th, so we didn't have to pay to have an expert report developed and really incur some cost. So that was the quick and easy way to deal with that, was to just get a stay. But I think the question really is, what is still relevant in the lawsuit?
And we paid less interest charges, correct?
Yes. We did not pay the full amount of late penalty
Oh, right.
payments and things like
Because
that,
they misplaced the check.
because they lost the check.
Yeah.
And at least Tom Hedstrom had said, well, that seems reasonable, you shouldn't have to
Okay.
pay those charges. It's,
So I have a fine point to ask about that. Somewhere I thought, so did Rockport write the check payable to the town of Camden or to Maine Water? There was somewhere I saw something
Yes.
about paying to Maine Water.
Town of Camden.
Okay.
So, and let me, I'll tell you what would happen if it was in reverse. If, let's say the town of Hope was suing Rockport over, I don't know, something happened at Grassy Pond. And they wrote a check to us instead of Maine Water, who was usually doing the billing of it. Town of Rockport would cash the check, and then we'd figure it out with Maine Water later. That's what that's how we would handle it in our office. I understand that there's billing with Maine Water, and that's that's a fine point that maybe could have been worked out, but
Or maybe
As I
have a
saw
conversation that says, hey, can you make this check out
Yeah.
to them
Right.
instead of us,
There-
please?
there was a
wasn't
way to
fatal
get there.
flaw. There wasn't any
Yeah.
reason to throw the
Yeah.
check away or whatever happened to the check,
right,
just because it,
it was
It's a grown-up
solvable.
thing to do.
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
solvable,
And
yeah.
the check was submitted in good faith as a
Yeah.
point of like, yeah, we agree that we owe you this money. So, yeah, I think we should ask Dan to reach out to Bill to ask about getting the lawsuit dismissed. And then Bill can carry it forward with the select board. I think Bill was not at the meeting, and I think they just, again, I think they're less engaged, less familiar with what's happening. I think several of the board members maybe weren't even aware that the lawsuit was still going on.
And I can understand the hesitancy not to commit to something
with your
in
lawyer
case
not there, that,
that would blow up something.
Yeah.
I can totally understand that.
And the other thing that I would probably add is that I don't think this matter is as high on their relative list of importance in Camden as it is for us, rightly so, right? Because our economic future rests on being able to have a place that we can have our wastewater go to, right? We've got bills that are at over $20. We've got, people who want to develop. We can't do that because we don't know what our future is. It's not their problem, it's our problem. But there comes a point, though, in that conversation, I think, for all of you, where if you can't get the answer, get an answer, forget about whatever answer it is, but an answer, you have to make what's the best decisions for Rockport, right? And in some ways, there's some parallels with EMS where you have to do what you have to do, and there's value in being linked arms, but to some degree, there may be a point where you have to make a decision that is on your own.
right, if the other partner who you'd want to have be your partner isn't quite ready to move along with you,
Right.
eventually you have to.
Well, there were some statements that it seemed like, how do I phrase this? So Rockport wants to be with us because they want the easy way out, and.
Yeah, we
can't-
definitely were hearing things.
And we need to just protect the town of Camden. We don't have to worry about what Rockport needs.
Yeah.
And that just set the tone to me,
Yes.
like, how could we all move forward and be able to know that we can rely on
Yep.
being able to expand out Route 90 or whatever, it really raised some concerns to me, that approach.
Yeah.
Yep, we might be trying to force a relationship that,
Yeah.
I think as we phrased it, when, in the mediation, when the mediator said, is this a divorce or a long-term relationship? And we said, well, we hope it's long-term, and the mediator came back and said, no, it's a divorce. And I've used that analogy with
Yeah.
folks to say,
Oh.
if two people are together and one doesn't want to stay together, you can't force that other person to stay with you. We're
Yeah.
we're doing our best to, and I know we have residents who very much want us to work with Camden on these things, and we are doing our best to do that.
They've
but
got to
we
want to
also
work with
have-
us, too. I mean, yeah,
Exactly, we,
it's-
Well, that was my gut reaction before I became on the select board. I want to try to see how we can keep this going smoothly,
yeah,
but I'm seeing that it's gonna be almost impossible.
yeah. Yep,
Yeah.
The risks, yeah.
yep. And we do have to protect Rockport. Rockport comes first, and,
Yeah.
we do.
And there are potential solutions for us.
Yes,
That's a good, important recap.
good, all right. Yeah, good discussion. Eric, give us a little, and I know Jim's on the board as well, Eric, but.
More
I'd
fun
love-
stuff.
Yeah, let's
Midco
hear a little bit about
solid
Midco
waste.
solid waste. Once we go from sewage to dump.
We'll go
This is
from
like what a
one
night.
trash thing to another.
Yeah.
Let's see, well, we've only really had one meeting but going forward, let's see, I did reach out and I have an update. So the budget is getting started, so I think we're looking at trying to get it done through January. Because, that's a fun process. Jody's reworking the spreadsheets so that hopefully it won't be quite the fun game that it was last year. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully get a meeting next week or so to start that discussion. What else is new?
Yeah, so in terms of finances, relatively not, we won't be paying any more?
I don't know yet.
Okay,
Yeah, there's a couple of points because going back to wastewater, yeah, that's getting rather expensive. I mean,
yeah, and for people
We hit-
watching, Midco Solid Waste also sends.
sends the wastewater to Camden, and we budgeted, oops, hold on, I have it here. I just have to find the right page. Somewhere here. Come on. Oh, well, whatever we budgeted, 200,000 for last year, but it ended up being closer to 300, I think. Let's see, so last year's,
And you're talking the budget for Midco
Midco
Solid
Solid
Waste.
Midco Solid Waste, yeah,
With you being the new director, what is it, like,
chair.
chair of the board of directors?
Yeah, so, don't you love it when these apps just don't work?
It's the best.
Yeah.
No better feeling.
Rate us now. I don't want to rate you now and losing it.
I've got a rating
Not
for
one
you.
here, but I have to tell you.
Number one.
How far will this fly?
This might be the new one. Where's our wastewater here? Expenditures. Trying to find it. Do you remember? What was it, 200 and something?
So a factor of a third
Yeah,
again.
yeah, we went way over budget on wastewater, and with the new rate, we're probably looking at 350,000 just in wastewater, if not
And is that
400.
a function of like rainwater? I mean, what is,
Well, yes, because it was so wet.
yeah, when you think of the
The
soils.
north pond, the north quarry fills up, pushes the water back underground into the pile, and then they have to pump. So basically, we're pumping water out of underground and then out. So it's a continuous flow of like 50 to 55 gallons a minute.
And that's just all water that's seeping through the,
Well, yeah, some of it's seeping through, and it's just because it was so wet this year that it was just continuous. Now, Dave, I did ask him, and he did say talk to the state about the north quarry, so hopefully we're gonna just drain that off as stormwater.
Good.
So
yeah.
that will help alleviate the pressure of the water going back underground, which will reduce some of that flow. In addition to that, we are looking at potentially putting in our own wastewater treatment facility, which in the long term would reduce the overall cost to maybe $50,000 to $60,000 a year. And because this is in perpetuity, we are going to forever have to pay to pump that leachate out of there. So forever and ever and ever, that's going to be running. So in order to get away from paying, the town, because once it's closed, the town taxes have to eat. The 4 towns, their taxes are going to have to pay to keep that pump running and pay to process that wastewater. So the goal, hopefully, if the state agrees, is to get our own facility, which would reduce it down. We're looking at a couple of different options, but, the idea is it would cost us maybe $60,000 a year to run, compared
Which would be
to
cheaper than-
300,000 or 400,000 going forward here. So if we can get that going,
Yeah.
and then, of course, the board has to agree to all of these points, but, that's what we're pushing towards right now. And we've hired a firm to look at that. Being the first step is to actually go to the state and say, can we do it? Because, of course, just like Rockport's running into, where do you put the outflow?
Yeah.
So while it sounds like a great plan, the state may say, yeah, there's nowhere for you to pump that water, which is literally just water, the problem being it contains PFAS. So the majority of the PFAS that's going into Camden's wastewater is coming from the leachate, so that's another problem. So, and since that's a big issue going forward, we have to look at dealing with that issue. So there's a lot going on,
Yeah.
and a lot of people may not know all these things, so.
Oh, that's interesting.
and
Yeah.
a package of bags is $15, right?
Yeah, well, we'll see how that stands. I don't know yet. So part of the problem with the budget, though, is the audit got started late, so we don't even have the audit yet to finish that up. So without the audit, it makes it a little difficult to process the budget. And again, as John knows, the budget becomes a problem because we're trying to calculate 18 months out on a budget, because we're trying to figure out what our budget's going to be in June of 25 for now, So it's a little complicated, so, those are really the big points that we're talking about right now, so did I forget anything?
No.
No,
Thank you
know,
both for,
yeah.
no, no.
I mean, there's some little stuff going on, you know, hopefully, you know, we've talked about the swap shop and getting one of the compressors. Didn't we authorize that at the last meeting to change? Yeah, we authorized some funds to get a new compressor, one of the, you know, the big hoppers. So we're gonna, because one of them, if you haven't noticed, if you ever go there, and it's not it's the commercial one. One of the commercial ones, if you throw and you watch them scrunch it, it kind of goes, it's all jittery. Yeah. So, so the idea is we're gonna get a new used one, I think, a replacement for that one. That one will then get serviced, fixed up the way it needs to, and then when the other one needs to get, we'll have a spare, kind of rotate them until they completely fall apart.
Well, they're old.
Yeah, of course they're old, and we're getting rid of the chipper, so, and hopefully, and some old fire truck.
Yeah, now the fire truck and the chipper. The two
Yeah, trying to get
two
rid of
things for
those,
sale.
okay.
so, which will help. I think overall it's running fairly efficiently. He doesn't have any current issues, so.
Good, good.
When you say chipper, like wood chipper?
Yeah, there was an old wood chipper that's extremely dangerous that they don't use, so we're just trying to offload, get rid of excess equipment that's just sitting around.
You said fire truck?
And an old, was it like a 1970s or something fire truck?
Yeah,
Yeah,
78, I think.
Yeah.
Is that one that we sold the town?
I
Yeah,
think so,
yeah, no, there used to be an
It's
old
still
town
around?
truck.
Yeah,
Used to be flat, yeah,
For the
flat.
nineties, came over, was it?
I don't know,
While back, right?
a while back, yeah.
Yeah.
Even in the 90s, that was like 30 years ago.
And it was 30 years old then, you know?
Well, it's a stub nose, you know,
yeah.
But you said it was the oil, it was an oil truck. It's now, it was a fire truck.
Yeah, let's see.
It goes back.
still running.
Well, thanks, Eric,
Wow.
that's great.
Yeah, if there's
Nice to
anything
have you as the
else,
chair, and
we'll update you again after our next meeting, which hopefully will be January, so.
yeah, so it sounds
'Cause
like the
it's-
leachate is probably.
Yeah, that's our biggest issue, really. I mean, well, biggest ongoing concern and cost center.
Right, and where there might be something you could do to,
Yeah, I'm really hoping the state agrees that we can put in something to put our own facility.
yeah,
I mean, we've looked, basically, we're kind of looking at some ponds that they've used in other facilities. You pump the water out and it goes through this pond cycle and
yeah.
so that the heavy materials drop out and then they just have to clean that area. And then it would run through and filter through some plants or an ultraviolet system and some way of getting rid of the PFAS.
Right.
I said, well, lots of tomatoes and sunflowers. They're supposed to pull a lot of PFAS out of the ground.
No kidding,
Yeah,
really?
sunflowers,
Wow.
they've determined, are one of the better options. But then you have to get rid of it by super burning it at like 400 degrees Celsius.
Oh, no. Oh, my.
To get rid of it.
Wow.
But it gets rid of it. Yeah, it has to be a pharmaceutical grade furnace that burns it over like 300 to 400 degrees.
The PFAS?
Maybe we
Yeah,
just
yeah.
have to connect with Penn Bay, do they have an incident?
Yeah, I doubt it. So, but
Dragon
that's one of the things that people have found recently is sunflowers will draw a lot of toxins out of the soil, but then you can't use the sunflowers, obviously. So the point then is you
What
have
do you do
to
with the
burn them.
sunflowers?
Yeah, you have to incinerate them.
So you can't
I
feed
don't
the
know what we've ever done with.
No, because it would be like, you know, the plant themselves then contains all the PFAS.
I don't know what we've ever done with the methane, because at one time the Y was thinking about drawing methane off to heat their, and I don't know where the hell that discussion ever went. I think that was in long-range planning at one point in time, but nobody's ever brought it up again, so I don't know where it
Not
went.
running an active landfill.
At some point, we're gonna have to collect that coming out of,
Well,
Probably,
It's
know.
gotta be down there somewhere to be at the
Right.
band.
and whether it's collected now or when we
Right.
cap it,
Yeah,
at some point, we might as well get a use for that
yeah,
methane.
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
it's,
what I said. Why don't we just build our own incinerator and generate electricity.
There's your 400-degree furnace, right there.
Eric, you
Problem
gotta
solved.
think big now that you're in the
Well,
chair.
I had somebody ask me the other night, why don't we lease it out and let somebody else take care of it?
I've thought of that, Tim. I've thought of that as an option.
You know,
Some good policy stuff to think about.
Yeah, because it's almost like, yeah,
yeah.
you know, are we the most qualified? Is really the question.
It's always been that. It's so hard. As a layperson, it's hard to do that. It's, yeah, I know, man.
Well, thank you for your work as the chair of that, and Jim, both of you for being on the board.
It's a dirty job, but someone has to do it. You two are willing to take it on, so
Yep, it's
Well,
an
good on
important
you
one.
both.
Because it's an interesting topic that
It really is.
I mean, it is,
actually
you
gives
know.
me lots of energy to think about, you know,
Yep.
Good,
so.
then you're in the right place. All right, select board liaison reports.
You heard mine. it
Kim,
was
you
amazing.
probably EMS, you're sort of up, we've sort of know where we stand on that.
Yeah. Yeah, we kind of hit that last month, and
Yeah,
then the next meeting is, I don't know what the date is yet.
Yeah,
We had a date, and then it needed to change, and I don't
yeah,
think I've seen an update yet on
I haven't
a
either.
final date.
Yeah. I haven't either. Yeah.
Michael, anything?
I'll be
Or-
going to the conservation on Wednesday. I had to miss the last one of those and Pathways Committee, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, Pathways, I'd love to know what's, if we're gonna get our sidewalk on Main Street.
Matter of fact, Kristen was here earlier.
Yeah, Kristen.
She's on it, yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know anything.
I did have one question on the pathways that happened. From, the question being, why did we put a sidewalk in front of Loyal Biscuit?
It's on the way to somewhere.
Because the comment from was, wow, it's the sidewalk to nowhere. Because literally, she's like, it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, I can understand it going as far as, say, the corner of, you know, Country Inn
Yeah.
and and the golf course and stuff, but it was almost a waste running it down that little bit. Because from that point on, unless you're gonna
Right, what do
cut
we
back
do
the
then?
bushes and continue it to the town halls,
That, yeah,
Was that the possi?
is that a
yeah.
possibility?
Well, if we have another $1 million.
Okay, well, that's what I figured,
know,
but
I
I
mean-
just, it was asked,
Yeah.
so I am asking.
I think
What the
that
point
was,
was it?
I think, again, this is, the planning for this started a decade ago.
I know it did.
You know,
that's
and
what
then
I
it was
said.
like, you know, one of these things that takes forever,
Yeah.
but, yeah, there was some thought that let's build a loop there so it connects, Rockport brings its section up to the town office, and then we're all the way up, and isn't it beautiful? But then, the cost was way more, I
Than
mean, I think
anybody
it
expected,
progressively, it kept getting exponential, and at some point, exponential becomes exponential of exponential, you know?
Wasn't that part of a DOT grant?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think that,
Maybe that's what we.
they paid for most.
yeah,
most of it.
Lenny was on the committee years
Right.
ago when that started. I don't know all the details, but I know it had to do with a DOT grant, and that's
Mm-hmm.
probably,
X number of feet, and you have to do it.
right, I
Yeah.
think it was the scope of the project for that grant.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that just happened to be the odd place for it to end,
Yeah, it was,
with the intention of it going to be a connector path
Yeah.
around.
that's what I said, but
Well, you can
I just
always
wanted to
say-
make sure I'm not saying something that wasn't the original intent. And
No,
I
I
I
said,
would say it started, then went into Camden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, yeah,
The intention is it for each end to continue on.
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
To the
At
high
some
s-
point.
To the high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's its own, right.
Okay, Eric, any?
No, we did it.
You did it, yep, we
about-
did do
We
it.
did the harbor
Do
committee.
do you want to talk about the WRF task force? Is there
Should
anything?
probably give an update on that.
Yeah.
Is that-
I missed the first 30 minutes because I was at the vet, not having a very fun time. So,
Yeah, John, do you want, I mean, various of us have been, but
Yep, so then since the last meeting, there's been quite a bit of work that's gone on in the since whatever we met, that you all met at the 12th, and jump in, any of the three of you, whenever. But since that point in time, there has been a drive around the town to look at various sites where could potential places, potential sites for a facility. Yeah, go.
I thought at first you said wharf,
Yeah.
Oh,
so if anybody, like water,
Yeah.
the sewer department thing.
Yeah.
Sewer thing, okay, that's the topic. for us,
Wastewater
okay.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
You got it. So then that tour that day ended with a visit to Lincolnville and the facility that Lincolnville Beach has. Very impressive, clean, odorless, unassuming. I mean,
Nobody knows.
knocks your socks off.
Nobody knows what that is.
You wouldn't even bat an eyelash looking at it if you're standing in the middle of it. Not a whiff of anything, remarkable. So subsequently, the task force and the engineering firm, Brent Bridges from Woodward and Curran, have been working and trying to dial in on a couple of those different areas, working with the hospital and looking at some potential placement on an existing site there, looking at Public Works. There's a couple other places. And then also, there was a trip to Western Maine that a number of you took right before Thanksgiving to visit Bridgeton and to visit Oxford. Two facilities, relatively, one in process and one that's still new, with a couple different technologies. And I think, certainly both of you went and can talk about that. And I think then there's part of the next phase meeting with the DEP. So Bilbo and Brent Bridges from Woodward and Curran met with Greg Wood and a number of different entities at the DEP, looking at how to, what will be allowed, what won't be allowed, what's the modeling, how do you figure out where things can go in Rockport, what are the hurdles in building a facility. And I think also just dialing into the last meeting was really focused on trying to figure out what's the outcome of all of this. Bob Colmar is going to put together a strategic plan, is what the way he phrased it. So look a little bit broader than where the bounds of the PER are holding the Woodward and Curran end of this, but really the efforts that I think broadly that the board and the community are looking at in terms of what is it we're going to need to know for us as a community to say, yeah, that's a good idea, let's build this, or no, that's a terrible idea. So Bob's putting that sort of matrix together, I think. And then also talking about what's the public outcome of this. Right now, 2 meetings have been discussed in February, early March, to share the findings of what came through that process. And then subsequently, I think the idea is that those meetings will be held prior to your meeting in March. And there may need to be some votes at that point as to whether or not to move forward in drafting a warrant article. Again, these are 2 separate tracks. There's the communication with Camden, and that's still being pursued, as we talked about tonight. But there's issues there. I'll just call it that. And then there's how does this work, and can you find something that works in terms of construction, in terms of cost, in terms of feasibility, environmentally, and everything else. Those 2 tracks are operating at the same time. But at the end of the day, I think there's going to come a point where this board is going to probably have to make a decision, about picking a side. And, I think you exhaust all options you can diplomatically and try to work through those things, but get them ready.
Yeah, I've got to say, going to those 3 different sites to see the different plants and the technologies was really, really helpful. because none of them had the stinky stuff that I imagine from the sewer plant that was in Bar Harbor, downtown Bar Harbor.
Right, that we all grew
when I
up
lived
with.
down there.
Yeah.
It's so different, and each one was a different technology to think about. And the budget will be a huge thing here, and a primary, I think, goal for the whole project is to reduce the sewer rate that Rockport pays. It may be cheaper, hopefully, to have our own plant and be in control of it. It may save every user money.
And give Rockport the flexibility
Yeah,
to expand
to
and
expand out
grow.
wherever, yeah.
Yeah.
So I find it very encouraging. I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
Good stuff. It's an amazing group of people on this committee. We have got,
Oh, there's some
Yeah.
brilliant
you know, these are
minds
people
there.
who've done this kind of work professionally and charged a lot of money to clients to do what they are doing for us as resident volunteers, and we're so lucky to
It's
have
like we
them.
have our private engineers
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
so,
I-
yeah,
I've been impressed by the amount of knowledge that they all bring
yeah.
in the different points. It's like they each cover their own little
Yeah.
corner, and it's
we
like,
couldn't have come up with a better group that
Yeah.
came up.
they definitely know a lot more than any of us would have ever been able to
Yeah.
learn.
Yeah. So thank you to all of you.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, can we make one comment from Sharon, just letting everybody know on the dispatch
Good point, yeah.
fees that the county commission did waive any late fees in relation to the delayed 911 payment.
Okay.
So they just wanted to make sure everybody knew that, because I don't know if everyone was made aware.
Yep.
So,
Good, goodwill gesture on the part of the county.
yeah,
Thank
so
you.
I appreciate that the county understood the concern and did that.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Jim, any liaison reports? I mean, I know you already covered Midco Solid
No.
Waste.
Eric said everything I needed to say.
Okay, good, good. Let's see, VPI, we're gonna have a meeting next week. And, we'll,
No, it's this week.
Is it
Thursday.
this
is it this week, Thursday?
This week.
Oh, yeah, it is Thursday, you're right, because I had to change an appointment.
10, yeah, 10 on,
10 a.m.
10 on Thursday.
On
Yep.
Thursday.
10 a.m.? Who has meetings at 10 a.m.?
VPI. But, well, we should have some more
Tired
information
people do.
and reports back from the engineering firm
I know
Sewell.
he works for government.
And talk more about the bridge and what those plans, what that might look like. So I think there's some good things that are gonna come out of this process. We're still in the thick of it, but we're definitely talking about things that we can do to slow traffic down on Pascal, things we can do, you know, short of wholesale re-engineering everything, but Sewell definitely has a lot of experience in this area, so it's a good analysis. Legacy Rockport, we're gonna get a new sign down by the Vulcan locomotive that James Lentz, who's getting his Eagle Scout Award for putting this together, and some wonderful photos and good historic information on the Vulcan.
Did they reword it any?
They did.
Thank you.
I think it reads pretty well. I think maybe
Yeah.
John had a role in that, and.
Thank you.
it's,
I didn't have to do as much because I think Heather took
Heather-
another crack at it before,
yeah.
so.
I appreciate it. because-
Yeah, and Heather just did an amazing job of
Yeah.
putting that together, and.
Very helpful.
And I just think, you watch the way people in the park go and read the lime kiln sign.
Mm-hmm.
They're eager for information about what is down there. So I think this will be a real draw to see that. And there's plans for some more signs, which we'll get to hear about before they get done. But anyway, it'll be fun to see when that gets up. Maybe it'll be up, I don't know, I was going to check and see if it could be up before the New Year's Eve celebration.
Oh, wow, yeah, that'd be nice.
Because Adventure Advertising is doing it, and I think
Oh,
it's ready to do. Yeah, Parks Committee's sort of in the throes of winter planning and getting stuff ready for the next season. Looking at Mary Leah Park a little bit, not to really dramatically change anything, but when you're over there and you start to realize with the Parker Room entrance down there and the ways that you could try to integrate the park more with the Opera House, there's some, I think, some interesting things that could be looked at. And
Well,
also, talk about taking that penalty box and sort of
Is that
making
where
it.
the bench is?
Yeah, the one bench
Okay,
that's
okay,
sort of
these-
like, first of all, we're gonna put a nicer bench there. But
Penalty box. I just love
isn't
that.
that
I
what
knew what
everybody
you were
calls
talking
it
about,
that?
though.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what,
I just love the phrase.
I
that's
know,
all.
it is. And I don't know who came up with that. But the idea would be to build more of a retaining wall along there and create more of an esplanade where you would have more benches than just the one bench.
That'd probably be a good idea, because
It would
it's
be
really
so
kind of
neat.
steep and it's,
It's
can't
a
really use
tricky
it.
area, it's
Yeah.
because it is so steep. And it was, I guess, intended to be sort of an amphitheater.
Yeah.
but even then, it's still kind of too steep.
It's a little steep.
Yeah.
But imagine if, because that's just one of the nicer harbor views we have, sort of along there. And that penalty box has always got people sitting on it, so.
Boarding, checking, whatever,
Whatever
holding,
they've done wrong,
tripping. For some reason, they could put them there.
not picking up after their dog.
That's right, yes. 2-hour parking, you know, it's
Oh.
from the box.
Well, I guess that's it, huh? Are we,
We have to sign all those documents.
yeah, we do have documents to sign too, but let's get an adjournment. Do you have a
I just
motion?
didn't want
So
everyone
who
to run
wants to
away.
move to adjourn?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I move the board adjourn the meeting.
All right, second,
Second?
Michael,
Yeah,
all those in favor?
aye.
Okay, great. Okay, and then these